and they're all doing the stepping stones up to hopefully someday be up there with Carl and Schrader, and I hope they live as long as Dale has.
Dale, you're not old. What are you talking about, buddy? That's interesting to hear you say that, Rex, because the younger drivers who are coming in now, do you see an increase in, the reason I ask that is that NASCAR on television, the major NASCAR races, has experienced a bit of a decline in its viewing audiences. Is that not shown with the younger drivers coming in?
It has for a while. NASCAR has declined because it's been, being so commercialized, I guess you would say. Short track racing is really gotten shot in the arm here in the last few years. And honestly, if NASCAR wanted to fill the stands up again, all they need to do is put dirt on one of those racetracks, and they would have to run people away.
Lonnie Williams, you've seen these guys race, you called their races, you officiated some of their races, I'm sure. Heck, you officiated and announced Carl Edwards races at I-44 Speedway back in the day. What memories stand out to you, not only about these guys, but maybe Carl?
First of all, I'll start with Dale. I started going to the races, I was 5 years old, had a few years away, and then my stepdad started taking me and my mom. Dale used to drive for the Tenco company, boys out of Rolla. He'd come into the old Bolivar Speedway with a school bus and the Mustang, and we were Ford people. That was a Ford family, so we always cheered for Dale. And I always liked to watch Dale because he was patient. He wasn't an aggressive driver, but he was a very smart driver. Now we'll fast forward, modifieds. Big cost, big talk about it. These two were our first Southwest Missouri drivers, 85, I believe it was. Gary Bass started a company called Dirt Works, hired Mr. Merritt to help him build what was an IMCA modified. The function come out of Iowa, filtered to Kansas City. Rex and Gary seen it because they knew each other very well from the racing, and Gary used to run a late model a lot in the old dirt tracks at Monette especially. So Dale's got the D1 car, Rex is in the D2, and they sold a lot of dirt work cars out of that little shop at Monette because Gary put two good drivers in. But I've never seen a driver, back then you had an engine claim, $350, all right? Rex is managing R&R or Auto Salvage down there in Aurora. We would run a 3-night swing. We'd run Bolivar on Friday night, back when it was bought back and through, Lebanon on Saturday night, and Monette on Sunday night. IMCA, if you were in the top 4, your motor could be claimed, whole motor, all right? That started a lot of grudge racing. I never seen anybody jump up and down about getting their motors bought more than Rex Merritt did. Here it is Sunday night. Now nobody would claim on Friday night, very seldom at Springfield Raceway did they do it at Bolivar. Saturday night, didn't happen at I-44. Everybody, that's just the way it is. What would they do Sunday night? The night we're wanting to get racing program done so we can all get on the road, get home, get in bed, and be at work on Monday morning. Well, Rex was out there, he'd tell you, it's a piece of junk. It's a piece of junk. That motor's gonna blow on you in 2 or 3 races. It usually would, and if I'm not forgetting, Rod Stovall usually, I think, bought most of your motors that year. Bought one of yours too. We got into that, we were IMCA sanctioned at I-44 in '86. And Bill Haglund called me during the winter. He asked Bill Willard, what do we need to do to eliminate this? Guys are getting motors bought left and right, certain drivers, certain cars. I said, I'll tell you a story. I live by a video store, and they have what they call a claim card. You pay $10, you get so many movies, punch it, that's it. That's when they started 4 motors a year. And it didn't matter whether it was a national event or regional event, you had to only buy 4 motors, is all you could buy, had to present your card, the officials would punch it after they pulled the motor. That did a lot of way with the buying of the motors, and of course, these two gentlemen really did a great deal for modified racing, which brought the modified and the younger generation up. You know, they were running without clutches, Rex and Dale both. We hated it. They'd spin out about every other race, and we'd run them at the end of the night, and it took forever to run their features. These two gentlemen had the foresight, we need to put clutches in these cars. Rex had the connections with Bill Haglin up at IMCA, so he'd give a lot of positive feedback to make the race car better as we went along. Now Carl, everybody knows him from the Baby Grands. His dad used to race mini stocks at the old Bolivar Speedway. His name was Mike Edwards, not the one that used to announce on KGTS, no, not the same one. Had a Volkswagen, he was a good front runner. Well, Carl would run a modified at Jeff City at Capitol Speedway, which was a NASCAR sanctioned track, won a championship up there. We're going to fast forward. Baby Grands are starting to pick up pretty good. Tommy Craven's had them going good in the area. In 2002, the Speedway bumped the purse up to the Baby Grands, and instead of 6, 7, and 8 a night, we're getting 14 and 15 a night. One of the best shows. Carl was driving down, he was a part-time or a substitute school teacher in Columbia. Driving down in that little old 120,000 mile Chevette. Dwight Laxton of West Plains owned the car. His son Mark had a car, he was out of Springfield. Carl's first win was in his second or third time of the Baby Grand. Now we all know the infamous backflip. He does when he wins on the NASCAR tour. Carl pulls into the winner's circle, we drop the net. There is no faking, this guy is excited. He's pumped and he's jacked. We introduce him, he gets out and he said, hold on before we talk. He runs down the front stretch and does the backflip right there in front of the Lebanon crowd. Awesome, awesome deal. Now Carl became a fan favorite because of his enthusiasm and the relations that he had with the crowd. It was real neat after the races. The Baby Grands were in a little breed of their own. Carl quickly was becoming a fan favorite there, as Dale was. That was some prime time back there in 2002. One of the most interesting stories we had, Kenny Schrader put Carl in a truck from Milwaukee. 4th of July weekend, we're gonna run Baby Grand Nationals. We got 24, 25 cars, we're starting them all. Carl was qualifying the truck up in Milwaukee, missed the driver's meeting. He flew down, got into the car, no practice laps. They went ahead and let him qualify, but the pole was not gonna happen. He set fast time, 0.3 of a second faster than what our pole setter did. He starts 25th on the grid, 25 lap feature. He's not running out of talent, but he's running out of laps. And we're running through and he's throwing that car like a dirt car up on a cushion up there, dodging and weaving and back and forth. Just when it looks like, well, the dream and the drive's not gonna happen, caution, 5 to go. He lines up third, takes the lead, coming for the white flag, pulls off the victory. Lendl Ned, I thought the place was absolutely going to tear down because the hometown boy, we had adapted him, even though he's from Columbia, took the biggest victory of what he would consider his career, and from there, all it did was vault off. Mike Mittler has a lot to do with a lot of Missouri drivers. He's put him in equipment. Dale's helped him with some spots, some drivers and everything, and you know, it's just awesome that these gentlemen are coming into the Hall of Fame tonight. That was 2002 is when he did that, made a name, won the Baby Grand National Championship. They put the dirt on I-44 after that season, but Carl was able to vault his career, get into the right things, and you know, it's pretty neat. He's got such a relationship with the fans, with the tracks, everybody. Me and Rex were over there talking. Carl comes through and he grabs both of us, you know. We haven't seen him in several years, and it's awesome that he can remember those of us back here in the Ozarks, and he's got a lot of respect for Dale. Dale was probably instrumental in helping him get into Mittler's truck to help him start his career in the NASCAR.
We have handheld microphones. If anybody has any questions for any of the folks up here, just raise your hand. We'll be glad to come out and take
Any
your
questions? Any questions from anybody? Be happy to bring it out.
Yeah, Kenny wants to know when Rex is going to retire.
Nobody have any questions at all? Well, somebody has to have something. Don't be bashful, we're not going to bite. Lyndall, looks like we don't have any question takers. Be more than happy to hear from you. Anybody at all?
Well, somebody will surely ask one in a minute, but for now, let's ask Dale Roper about Mike Mittler. Dale, your relationship with Mike, and I'm sure Mike asked for some of your input perhaps on Carl and before he got into the truck. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I talked to Mike, I don't remember exactly when it was. I think he came to Lebanon one time to test some trucks, I think. And he called me and said, I'm gonna be in Lebanon. I don't remember who he had driving the truck, but they came to just middle of the week deal. And I think I told him then, that may have been the first time I'd seen Carl run the Baby Grands. And I'd seen him run the modified at Moment. I'd never seen him run a modified at Lebanon, but I have seen him run a Moment. And I told Carl, I said, oh, this boy's really good.
It's because he was behind you at Lebanon and I didn't have Allen's car.
Yeah, I had a better car than Carl had in 2002, and when we run the modified. He was actually in a car that I'd raced in '93. Tony was new, raced it in '91, the blue car. Tony drove it, and I drove it, and that's what Carl was driving. And it was a good car, but it wasn't as good for mine. It was a 10-year-old car, and mine was pretty new. And then really had a kick-ass motor.
I know when you guys do your share of racing and you've had all these big victories. Now be honest, does winning ever get old?
Rex hasn't done in the wall, he's forgotten.
Even with the very big races that you guys have won, it just simply it drives you, doesn't it? It's a force. It's what all athletes go through. You have to go out there with that passion. You guys still have it.
I don't know if it's the thrill of winning or the fear of losing if you're driving.
That's a very good point. You know, you're finding that out now as a young driver. It makes a big difference to you how you win.
Yeah, I went from winning hundreds of races in go-karts to going to big cars and taking kind of a beating. Honestly, I didn't win a race. I ran second to Ryan Gilmore 6 times in 1 year, and that hurt. I mean, that'll teach you that you want it that bad. So, I mean, when you win, it's good until you win another one. That's for sure.
Well, everybody here knows about Larry Phillips, and he told me one time, he said, I don't feel like I've got to win every race. I'm afraid to lose. And he said, I don't feel like I have to win every race, but I'm just afraid to lose. And that's just the way he went at it. So, he won a lot.
Well, a lot of your coaches or premier athletes, Hall of Fame athletes, always say the hurting hurts worse than the winning feels good. So that's really what drives you is you don't want to lose. And Kate, you won your first late model races last year down at Batesville, Arkansas. It's an historic track. What did that win mean to you? And this year going to the late models full time, kind of what's your outlook this season? Any goals?
Just main deal is gonna try to win Lucas Championship. I mean, that's the main deal. But that win, I mean, that really showed me that I think I can do it. I mean, I definitely have the equipment thanks to Rick Hoover back there. I mean, he gave me an opportunity to drive for him, and I mean, hopefully I can just get it done. I mean, it's pretty much up to me. I don't have any excuses now, so I just gotta do my job, I guess.
What's the biggest difference when you go from a B-mod, a car with smaller tires, to a late model?
Just driving it, those things are crazy. They're one heck of a race car, that's for sure. And it's just a big difference, especially the tires. The tires are crazy. I mean, the late model tires are just so much better. I mean, they're a better compound, I think, and they're huge compared to modified tires. So it's just you just have to drive like you're mad, I guess. So you just gotta drive so hard. It's just unreal. But I still have a lot to learn in the late model for sure, and I think I can get a lot better. So.
This kid is 16 years old, and you're still in high school. You're not allowed to even drive your main truck to the races. You have to have somebody driving. When did you guys begin, both of you, and do you remember, and I'm sure the answer is yes, your very first win?
I don't know when Dale started, because I don't know if they actually had cars back when he first started racing.
No, I was older. A lot of guys were getting ready to retire when they were my age when I started. I was 26 or 27 years old when I started racing. It's like this boy here. I mean, I had no interest in racing cars when I was his age, and I liked to get out and ride around in a car. But And I went to the races when we was young. I was always a race fan. I never had any indication that I would be a racer. Now, my brother started when he was 20. He started before I did. But I was 26 or 7 when I started, so I was,
Was that your age when you had your first win?
yeah, I was pretty lucky. At the fairgrounds, they had started what they called it then a novice class. It would be a street stock now. And we drug an old car out that they had put in a brush pile at Charles Sharp's house. And we drug that car out of the brush pile. And James Taylor had an old spare motor, had 3 or 4 sleeves in it. He said, well, just put that motor in it. And we did that. And I had hot laps my brother's car at the fairgrounds. So I could get there sometimes before he get off work. I had a hot lap his car, but I never competed. By the time I got going, they had been running that class for about 5 or 6 weeks. So they had, at that particular night, they had about probably 36 cars in that class, because we run a heat race with about half of them. I had to start in the back, and I just kind of got in the middle of the track and run around there and won the race. Then when we got to the feature, Jim Taylor, Dean, my brother, both said, well, this will be tougher. I did the same thing. I just kind of got in the middle of the track. They was running off the track. You can get off the track on both ends. And I just kind of stayed in the middle of the track. Then I actually won my first 2 races for $37.50. So, but it only cost $3 for a pit pass, I think. And I only had one guy help me. And we dug it up there on a tow bar, so I probably made $30.
I started, actually I won my first national event in 1971, but it was an AHRA drag race event. I started off in drag racing, and then bracket racing came in and kind of got off the drag strip and kind of went street racing. And then Dale Roper and Gary Elliott started promoting the Fairground Speedway, I think in 1979. And I was working with Gary at that time, and he said, why don't you quit playing in the street and build a race car? So built my first race car. Dale and Gary and several people told me it'd never work because it sat too low and everything, but we lucky enough won my first feature with it. And that's kind of how I started. It was, you know, the Roper family is kind of the godfather of racing in the Midwest, and I mean with Schrader and with Carl and with myself. They kind of got me off the street racing into circle track racing.
Rex and I, we'd go to, manage to get our vacation set up if we're still all working, and we'd take off in February. I know one time we went down there, I had 2 spare motors on my trailer, one for me and one for Rex. And we ran 10 shows in 12 days, I think. We was down there for 2 weeks. I think we ran 10 shows.
I believe that's right. We started out in, I don't know if we started out in South Georgia.
The short track in Talladega.
Yeah.
No, that was the next year. But anyway, we ran Volusia County a couple of times. But we ran all over the country down there, different tracks.
And back then we could run pavement road with the same car. I mean,
We did on that trip. Yeah, we run both.
Actually, in '86, I believe it was, '85, we kind of started, Dale and myself, and there's about 5 other racers. We kind of traveled through the barnstorm, through the Midwest and Southwest. We'd go to racetracks and kind of introduce the IMCA cars. There was a group of us from IMCA. And back then it paid the same money whether you won or finished 5th. And our whole intent was to go into a racetrack, put on a show, an exhibition race during intermission, and just make it close. I mean, there wasn't any ego issues or anything like that. We just was introducing the modifieds across the country, and we had a lot of fun back then.
Yeah, and they really, you can look around now, it's the biggest class in either. It doesn't make any difference if it's a B mod, A mod, now they got a Midwest mod, 3 different classes on dirt, and there's more modified now than there are any kind of car I'd say in the country.
Yeah, and we're quite lucky because you get young talent like Caden and people. When they all first started racing go-karts together, we'd go up and watch Lexi and Caden, and I was just really, my biggest concern at that time was they'd wake up early, or wake up to race the go-kart race, and they'd fall asleep in line all the time.
It's unreal for me to watch on TV now. They've got a series in California at Madera. That's a paved track, and you can't be over 16. You have to be 16 or under. And they've got the guys running, kids running in that field, 10 years old. They're full blown late models on a 3/8. It's a 3/8. Is it a 3/8 track or half? It's a short 3/8.
These are the big late model cars, and they're
Full. They have to. It can't be over 16. That's the age limit. Up. You can't be over 16, and you can be as. And the last one I seen, the two top drivers was 12 and 13. 12 and 13 years old.
All right, that brings up a question, because you can't be a wuss behind the wheel. It takes a lot of strength and power to handle those cars. When did you feel comfortable about driving something of that caliber? When it takes some strength to do.
I believe I got my first modified when I was 12, so it was about that time when I started, but I know what he's talking about. I watch it on TV all the time, and I mean, it's super cool. Those kids are young, and all of them are super good. Like, I've never drove on asphalt. I mean, I'd like to one day, but those kids are good. Like, it's impressive what they do.
Well, these young kids starting now it's different when of course Rex started after I did, but the cars they've got today, most of these kids have got somebody helping them that knows really what they're doing. They're not just cars you take off the street and put a set of roll bars in. They've got power steering, they've got good brakes. We didn't have any of that when we started. I mean, it's just awkward and main strength, I mean, you drive them old cars with no power steering, and they was heavy on the front end. But a young kid now gets in a good car. It makes a difference because the car's steered pretty easy, and like I say, most of them got somebody helping them knows what they're doing.
One of the neat things about the kids in our area right now too, with Caden and I know Lexi and several of them, they work on their own cars. It's not my dad brings the stuff to the racetrack and I play my Game Boy until it's time to get in. These kids are working on their own cars and doing a great job, and that, to me, that makes me feel like our sport's going to continue.
Rex, it's interesting you mentioned that. I was here last year when Mark Martin was up. I was the track announcer when Mark and Rusty Wallace and those guys were cutting their teeth here. But I had no idea that Mark was working in Larry Phillips' shop all summer long while he was up here, learning his craft, understanding how these cars are put together. It isn't just, I think I'll go out there and race them. You got to have a knowledge of what you're doing. I know you do. It makes a big difference in knowing the makeup of your car.
Yeah, Dad made me do tires this year, so that I'm not a big. I hate, especially those late model tires. Those things are huge. You know what I'm saying? You're cutting all those grooves in it. You're like, man, is this thing ever gonna stop? Like, But my dad always told me, the better you know your car, the better you're gonna race. So, and that's 100% true. The better you know it, the better you'll drive. I mean, it's just you come in and you know what you need to change. And racing sometimes you gotta have a good driver, but the car, sometimes you need to have it right. I mean, it's got to be right before the driver ever gets into it. So.
Hey, Caden, it's going to get a lot worse.
One thing I've noticed though, and I've watched, you'll hear Caden talk about his dad a lot, okay? I've watched the kid in go-karts. His dad works probably harder than anybody else, but Caden's right there with him, elbows up, not in the cart, but helping working on it. And you can tell right there, the father's proud of his son. I officiated a race up at the Turkey race up here at Springfield. Now he's running up what we call a ULMA late model. Does a good job over at Lucas Oil in their series. I keep track of it Sunday morning when I get up. I'm out there on social media, who won, who's doing what. The Turkey race, if I'm not mistaken, you're out there running with open late models. Now, Dale and Rex is what I always called money racers. The more money that's up there for a win or second or third, they are right there at the end of it. Okay, they're thinking cha-ching, cha-ching. They both know how to points race, probably better than anybody else. Just right down to it. Most guys mash the gas, I'm gonna take the most wins, but when you crash 4 or 5 times and you're on the trail early, it's over with. These two have always used their head. They have also helped the racetracks. And when I say that, from years past, if we think we're going in the wrong direction, I'll call Rex. I'll get some advice from him. So the track maybe I'm associated with, or all of us tracks in Southwest Missouri, we're looking at this. What do you think? Because Rex has got a lot of knowledge. Dale did the same thing with us at I-44 and pavement. Whenever we're looking at trying to get the costs down for the racers, the owners, and the teams, these two gentlemen have probably got more solutions than anybody else. This young man here is going to be what I call a money racer. I've watched him take a ULMA late model, run with the open cars, and does very well, especially when that track slicks off. That track slicks off, it don't matter how much big motor you got out there, everybody's on the same footing, and then it becomes a wheelman or a thinking driver. So, you know, we're very privileged in the Ozarks. Rex mentioned the upcomers in the karting area, bump stops. That's a big thing in racing now. The guys are from the world of karting. They're understanding this new technology. Let's go back to old school, Dale, where you roll your sleeves up and get out there and duke it out on the racetrack. So we're very proud of these guys.
We have a few more minutes to go here in this session. The autograph session will continue until about 6:15. We'll have to start cutting that down. But meanwhile, we are open for questions for any of these gentlemen up here at the table. We have a wireless microphone. Anybody wants to ask a question?
Raise your hands if you have any questions. We'll come right out to you. Indeed. Anything from anybody? These are pretty knowledgeable individuals up here. They have a world of experience, and it's all winning experience and big money. No questions? All right, here we go. Our first taker right here. At my age, it's going to take me about a year to get out there. But
Mr. Roper, what's the most exciting thing that you experienced while you was racing?
most exciting thing, Dale.
Well, one of the best, most enjoyable races, and I guess it has to call it exciting, was one of the last race that I ran at I-70 Speedway. That's up by Kansas City, Odessa, Missouri. We'd had kind of a rough year. Tony had a fatal accident in Texas in 2000, that's my nephew. And then my brother was racing in Springfield, Illinois. And 8 months later, Tony passed away in October. This was in August at the State Fair at Springfield, Illinois. He was driving a car for some guys that he drove for quite a while. And he didn't have an accident that caused his death. He had a physical thing that went wrong with him, but he was in the race car. But that Saturday, that was on Sunday afternoon. The next Saturday night at I-70, they had one of their special races. They were a 100-lap race for modifieds. Paid $2,500, I think, to win, which was more than he usually got to win. But anyway, I was running second with about 25 laps to go. No, I was running third. And the guy running second got into the guy leading, spun him into infield. And that was the second time that particular guy had got into the car. And I got on the radio with my spotter and I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't black flag him because that's the second time. And they did. So that gave me the lead with 25 to go. And I had one of the best cars up there behind me, but after about 3 laps, I got over it and I said, I don't believe he's gonna run me down. I don't think he can catch me. So I won that race, and that was one of because of what happened in our life and our family that particular year was a pretty enjoyable race for me. I felt like a couple of guys up there was looking down and watching that.
Well said, Dale. Very well said. Absolutely. Questions from anybody, please raise your hand. Be happy to come out. Rex, you might talk about what your favorite all-time win after all those years has been.
Anytime I can outrun my granddaughter, it's a great win for me. Yeah, and it's getting tougher all the time. She's come from the class that Caden has, and the youth is good. They really are.
Tell the folks a little bit about her and what she is and where she is in school at the moment.
Well, Lord only knows where she's at in school. I think her grades are pretty good. Lexi and Caden, and that's why I say there's several of them, Wesley Smith, they all started racing together. They all started racing when they were 6. I think you started when you were 5. And they're all progressing up. Lexi's running the USRA VMOX now. When she came from go-karts, we put her in a legend car. And then the promoter said she had to run with the adults, so I thought if they're gonna put her in a go-kart, we'll just put her in a modified. And at that time she was 12, didn't really know, girls are discovering boys, you don't know where their interest is at, so we didn't put a lot of money in the car. And little Turkey went out and won track championship at Monette. So I figured she's pretty serious, so we've been stepping her program up. But she's like Caden. The neat part about it is she works on her own car. Does her and her father work together hand in hand virtually every night, and that's what I like to see. That's the great thing about this sport. It's a family sport. It's not just the father or the son. It's the whole family involved with it. And to me, motorsports has been the glue that's held several families together.
It's what we call the passion for being in it. And everybody, Lyndall, for instance, a passion for journalism. You guys, a passion for racing. This young man right here, Ronnie, a passion for announcing. He calls them, he knows what races are. When did you guys, now he's 16, so he really can't answer that question, but you guys can. When did you really feel like this is what I want to do? This is really what I wanted to pursue? How old do you think you were then?
Well, I was a race fan. My dad was a race fan. In fact, he owned cars at Deanville. But we lived, until I was 12 years old, we lived about 5 miles south of Lebanon. And when they started running midgets up here on Friday night at the fairgrounds on this, it was a dirt track, a short track. We'd come up here on Friday night a lot. And I was like 10, 11, 12. We moved when I was 12. And then they started running stock cars out here. And I only lived, me and Dean could walk the fairgrounds. We lived north of the fairgrounds. We could walk through there, and we'd sit in the trees and watch the races. And climb up in the trees on the east end of the racetrack and watch the races. I knew then that I'd probably like to do it, but I knew at that time there was no way financially I could do it, because even back then, you had to have a little bit of money, a little bit to do it, But when Dean started, then I helped him, and I helped some other guys. There was a bunch of guys in Fairville who started racing. Dean, Billy Joe Adams, James Taylor, Bill Chandler, a lot of guys come out of there racing, and I helped my brother. I just knew when I got a chance to race, boy, I really like this, so I didn't quit. I just kept going.
Well, I grew up in Hermitage, Missouri, and we really didn't. The only closest racetrack was Humansville Speedway, and that's where I saw my first race. And the only way I kept up with racing at that time, of course we didn't have social media or anything, was National Speed Sport News and then what the Springfield paper did. I was lucky enough to be in that era where I got to watch the Ropers and Don Schoenfield and Willie and Bud McKee and just many Phillips, of course, so many great racers. And I think sitting in the fairgrounds, sitting here watching them is what sold me on the whole ticket.
So you were a teenager?
I've hit my head so many times, I don't remember if I was a teenager or not, but I think I was. I used to drive up here when I was 15, which was probably a year before I should have, but and watch them. So yeah, I was a teenager.
Just a couple of minutes to go here. I want to ask Ronnie Williams, Most memorable race you ever called?
Oh, lands. Too many, every race. Every race I've announced, you have something play out. And I'd say one of the most that I got to be involved with was John McCarnes in the ArtGo Challenge Series. And when they brought them to Lebanon, that was neat, but the one that I can remember was at Bolivar, and it was a heat race. Phillips was unbeatable at Bolivar. He didn't care what he did in the ArtGo races except for that 100 lapper. He won the first place money. There was a kid by the name, out of Minnesota by the name of John Lemke. Had the Valvoline colors on it, just like what Mark's car was painted up. This kid had some talent. So they're out there running one of the fast dashes. Larry's out there, and Lemke starts reeling them in. And he reels them in. 2 to go, he catches Phillips in the heat and passes him. When he did, you could hear the grandstands, and we're talking 3,000 in the grandstand, over 1,000 in tier because the place was packed, and you could hear them over the cars. We didn't do this for the heat races, but McCarnes looks at me and nods, so we're going to bring Lemke down to get him out of the car real quick. We brought him out, and I've never heard more of an ovation for a young man. And that probably, just that little 12-lap qualifying race, right there would be your most for the memory books, because Larry got beat at Bolivar, and you didn't see that very often over there.
How'd the feature end up that night?
The feature ended up that night, let me see, Jim Weber and Tom Carlson duked it out. And it was the first time that ArtGo had come to Bolivar. You know, Bill bought that track as a dirt track in the winter of 87, turned it from the old track to the way it is now. In 88, it was a dirt track. He pegged it in 89. He made many changes to that track. Finally put in the tier park, and you know, at that time, all the little towns, Fair Grove, Walnut Grove, Willard, Missouri, you had Miller, Missouri, everybody would congregate on Bolivar Speedway on Friday night. Well, we'd been running so much of the NASCAR Weekly Show, you know, it's kind of getting a little bit humdrum. So John McCarnes talked Bill Willard into holding an event for Labor Day weekend. I got to the racetrack, I took half a day vacation for my job. We got up there at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's already 25 haulers ready to get in the pits. Packed house for the night. I mean, it was absolutely great. And Tom Carlson and Jim Weber put on one whale of a show out there. And it was neat because Weber we called the old man. And he was quite a character, but he ended up winning it. Thank the crowd, hope we get to come back, see you at Lebanon. Probably the most memorial thing was with Weber though. We used to do the fast qualifying thing, and then we'd roll the dice. I had worked a few of John's traveling shows and watched Jim Weber and Steve Carlson, and this big old dice, they were throwing it down on the flat of a racetrack and getting 1 and 2, so they were inverting X amount. I thought, okay. Weber sets fast time, gets a new track record. Now I-44 is banked on the front stretch up this way. I thought, well, John's a showman, so I'm going to add a little fun to this. Jim gets out of the pace car, waves to the crowd. We start the interview, and I've got this dice. He's got his hands because he knows that Phillips is qualified a little bit slower than him. I told Jim, I said, we talk about the high banks of Lebanon. Let's walk up the banking on the front stretch. And Weber's cussing me the whole time. I make him roll the dice down the hill, rolls a 6. He starts 15th on the night. Larry ends up winning it. Crowd goes wild because, you know, Larry beat the traveling boys for a change. We're talking, you know, in that time and era. We come off the racetrack and John McCarnes comes to me and he said, by the way, Weber's pissed at you. I said, oh, go back to your record book in your van and see how many times him and Carlson rolled 1 and 2 this year. Because I'm like Rex, I kept up with that stuff on Speed Sport, Hawkeye Racing News, what they did. We go into Weber's trailer while the crowd's coming down and he's mad, and it was funny. He said, get him out of my trailer. John says, I'm going to tell you something right now. You screw my shows again anymore like that, you and Carlson, we've got a problem. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun back then, Landell, because we had a lot of characters and we had a lot of action. And I hope we get to see that come back around again.
What was your favorite race?
I remember one of those ArtGo shows in Lebanon when it seemed like Larry got wrecked in his heat race, had to start well back in the feature. And brakes were smoking, or something was smoking the last 40 laps. He used to keep thinking that his brakes were going bad or something, but he smoked all the way to the finish line and won the race. It's one of them that stands out. My memory's not nearly as good now.
Now, I know Dad will remember Rich Vogler's trip, Johnny Parsons Jr.'s trip, because if it wasn't for what you gentlemen did for us at the racetracks, dirt or asphalt, and the media, TV and print, crowds wouldn't have been there, and we appreciated that very much, and that comes from the drivers.
I'll tell you guys real quickly, for what it's worth, you guys, he won't. He's too young to remember. Linda will, you will. I was calling the races, and Buster Troutman and Harry Lightfoot were the co-promoters, and they brought up a note to me and said, I want you to announce next week that next week's driver, we have a special guest driver coming in from Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin. And I said, oh my, this is the guy's name? And you want me to announce his name to the crowd? You folks know who I'm talking about? So I called him Richard Trickle, since I was a wuss at the time. But that stuck with me because I thought they were pulling pulling one over on the kid here doing the announcing. Jeez, that made me panic, to say the very least.
Now we're actually talking about memorable races. I remember the old Rolla Speedway back in the 70s, the old fast half mile at Rolla. What an unbelievable number of shows we saw there when Trickle and Phillips and Goldsberry and the national guys came in there. Okay, one more sweep for questions. If we have any questions out in the crowd, we'll be glad to.
Any questions from anybody? Be more than happy. Nobody? Well, they know all the answers, Wendell. How about that? Hey folks, thank you very, very much. You're in for a very big evening, and we very much appreciate you all being here tonight, as do these guys right down here. Thank you all.
Testing. Let's get the podium mic a little louder. Testing. 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 Podium mic. Can you hear me okay in the back? Everybody hear me okay in the back? We need louder. Podium mic needs to be louder. You hear me okay in the back now? Testing. They're still saying louder. Whoa, now we're hot. We're hot with the ring. We need to be loud, but not the ring. Testing. You hear me in the back? Okay, thank you. Fans, this isn't dirt track racing tonight, so I think we'll start just a little bit early. We don't have to wait for the track to get ready. We want to welcome you to the 31st annual Ozark Area Racers Reunion. 31 years we've been doing this, and we can't do it without our corporate sponsors. So if you're here with Lucas Oil Speedway, Don's Auto Air, Lucas Oil MRA Series, Powertrain Industries, Super Linen, Super Clear Linen Service, O'Reilly Auto Parts, are you here, folks? Let's give these guys a round of applause. They're our corporate sponsors. At this time, we want to, a little bit of a sad note. This week, as we were getting ready to put on the reunion of some of our final meetings, we lost one of our dear friends and committee members, worked with us all these years, helped put this stage together, built it. Our friend Ernie Watson passed away on Tuesday. His funeral was today, and our hearts go out to Mike and Janelle and the family. We want to read a little bit here to you. Ernie Watson, this delightfully unique friend will live on. Always glad to see you. You are always glad to see him. In his 80 years, Ernie did so many things, accomplished so much, and made so many friends. Once you met Ernie, you never forgot. For those who knew Ernie, they were blessed. For those who didn't know him, they really missed something. As long as we walk this earth, Ernie Watson will be with us. Every year when we have this event, his touch is on it. He will occupy a big space in the back of our minds, and when we bring these thoughts forward, Ernie will leave a smile on our faces. Ernie will be greatly missed. Let's have a moment of silence, please, in reverence to Ernie. Thank you. And now, as at any racing event, we'll have identification, so again, we'll bow our heads in prayer. Father, we thank you for this day and for this event and for these great race fans and all those who support racing in our area. We're asking for a great 2018 racing season, that you'll bless every track, every driver, every promoter. Let's have a great season of racing in the Ozarks. Thank you for this night. Thank you for our friends and families and racers who have come out to enjoy this evening. And we ask your blessing upon this event. In your name we pray. Amen. And now our national anthem by Jan McElveen.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
And now, what has become a tradition, we want to recognize and salute to the champions of the 2017 racing season from the area tracks. I'm asking Trenton Berry to come and walk us through that.
Hey, thanks a lot. Glad to be back here with you. My name is Trenton Berry with RacingDirt.com. Obviously, we follow a lot of racing, and certainly the Ozarks racing near and dear to our hearts. It was another good year, albeit quite a bit different year around the racing scene, at least in the area. So at this time, if we could get all the track champions, which we'll see over here, ready to go, we'll get started with Monette Speedway this year under new ownership with promoter Kyle Slagle and family. So we'll get the Monette champions this way. In the A-Modified division, it was Jackie Dalton. In the B-Mods, Aaron Scroggins. In the Midwest Mods, Max DeBose. The Pure Stocks, James Reedus, and Lonnie Malbauer in the Pro 4. So congratulations again to all the Monette Speedway track champions. Gary and Dee Dee Stoba at the helm of the Legit Speedway in West Plains, Missouri. In the IMCA Modified Division, it was Shane Kelly. The UMP Dirt Cars, Caleb Stoba. The Super Stocks, Bobby Rattery. Sawyer Krigler in the USRA B-Mods. The Bone Stocks, James Brown and Bob Duncan in the Hobby Stocks. Congratulations to everybody at West Plains. The next racetrack had 2-point series. They had a summer series and a fall series. One driver repeated in the B-Mod division, and that was Tyler Brown for both series. So now to the summer series, Street Stocks, Jay Flynn, Bombers, John Scott, Rob Muhlenberg in the Midwest Mods, Pure Stocks, Jack Wood, and Dalton Bell in the Hornets. Those are your Midway summer season champions. And for the fall season, the previously mentioned Tyler Brown in the B-Mods, Joe Francis in the Bombers, Brian Piercy in the Midwest Mods, Mike Piercy in the Pure Stocks, and Sam McDaniels for the Hornets. Round of applause for those fall series champions as well. Moving on to the Springfield Raceway, no doubt the most colorful Ozarks racing promoter, and maybe a little crazy. Jerry Hoffman in the USRA Modified Division, the champion, again, Jackie Dalton in the B-Mods, and also the USRA B-Mod National Champion, right down here on the end, that is Ryan Gilmore. Heck of an accomplishment for Ryan in addition to the track championship. The Midwest Mods, Scott Campbell, James Reedus in the Pure Stocks, and Grayson Cox in the Legend Car division. The Lebanon I-44 Speedway, owned by the Willard family. In the late models, it was Mike Sloan, Ricky Eisenhower in the modifieds, Street Stocks to Michael Jurgensen, and Ronnie Taylor in the Chargers. Your champions from the I-44 Speedway. Final racetrack on the list tonight, under the watchful eye of General Manager Dan Robinson, who was also the reigning RPM Race Promoter of the Year. Congratulations, Dan. In the ULMA Late Model Division, the champion, Johnny Finnewald. In the A Modifieds, it was Jeff Cutshaw. In the Street Stocks, making his way front and center, all by his lonesome, Toby Ott. And in the B Mods, it was Andy Bryant. So those are your local track champions here for the 2017 season. You know, tonight's always a lot about looking back on the history, and especially the history at the fairgrounds, but we have a lot of great racing going on each and every week, so pick your racetrack, pick a couple of them, heck, get out to one of them at least, get out to each of them at least once. The racetrack promoters certainly would appreciate you, and it makes a big impact, your attendance at these events.
And now we have a special announcement. If I could have Jake Deemer and Jason Deemer join me on the stage. 14 years ago, we erected a 6-foot black granite monument out here on Pit Road that led to the Fairgrounds Racetrack, which is about where these restrooms are, was the front stretch. And that monument has been there since 2004. We're pleased to announce tonight we think is something really great for us. The monument will be moving to the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame out by Highland Springs. So we're real pleased with that. Jason, these guys are responsible. We have a photo of what it might look like. They're going to try to get that up. But now when you go to the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame, that's the front entrance, and right along that front wall will be our monument. And you can see we're having to add 2 additional sections to either side of it now, because it's full of names right now. So those will be the 2 additions on each side. It'll be right on that front wall of the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. Jason, come talk to us.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jason Deemer, like I said, with Green Lawn Funeral Home. I just want to first say our condolences go to Ernie's family tonight. They're going through an awfully rough time, so just want to say that we're thinking about them, and they're in our thoughts and prayers. Also, congratulations again to all the track champions this evening, and then to obviously the inductees for the pioneers and the legends both. And we appreciate all their work that they do. Once again, it's such an honor to be here this evening to be able to, show you the next step on getting the next step for the monument, to fill out the rest of the names on it, and to, make sure everybody's remembered the way they should be for forever, and it can always be out there at the Sports Hall of Fame for everyone to see. So on behalf of myself, my father, Jake, we just appreciate everyone being here, and we want to just be sure the racing always continues in the Ozarks, and it's always remembered, and everybody that put forth a lot of effort for many, many years. So thank you again.
And now, what you've been waiting for, our induction ceremony. Again, to kind of help explain, we have pioneers and legends. Pioneers are the guys who built the engines, turned the wrenches, did the announcing, the flagmen, the promoters, the car owners. They influenced our racing in our area, in those areas, not actually driving. Then we have the legend category to recognize our drivers. So that's the two areas in the categories, and that's the way they're listed on the monument when you go see it. Legends and pioneers. First up tonight, 2018 induction. We have pioneer Chris Davis, and the presenter is Trenton Berry.
Thanks a lot, Mark, and as I mentioned a little bit ago, just thrilled to be back again. This is quite an event. I don't know if everybody quite can grasp the scope of what goes on to put this thing together every year, and we're fortunate to travel all across the country, and you just don't see off-season gatherings like this. So we'll get to the induction ceremony, but I want all of you folks here tonight to give yourself a round of applause, and thank you guys so much for coming out. So we'll start in the pioneer category, and we'll work back and forth between the pioneers and the legends. The first one, Chris Davis, the owner of Midwest Sheet Metal, and it is my honor to be able to introduce him tonight and talk a little bit about Chris. He was a little reluctant to accept this honor, honestly, when it first came out. So I want to start with a show of hands, and you can wait to the end. We got a little bit of criteria we'll go through here. For all the racers that are here tonight, if Chris has ever given you a discounted piece of sheet metal for your car, when we get finished, I'd like you to raise your hand. If he's ever taken the time to design or build a part for your race car that maybe existed, maybe it didn't exist, but that shop didn't previously make, in a minute I'd like you to raise your hand. To some of the race fans and the racers out there, if he's ever given you a hat or a t-shirt, or for the fans out there tonight, if you've ever seen one of his logos on a race car on the track, could you please raise your hand at this time? You belong, buddy. I was so happy the association decided to recognize Chris for all of his efforts to the sport. Obviously, in this industry, the drivers generally get the majority of the notoriety and praise, and most times that's rightfully so. But it's folks like Chris and their tireless effort and work in the backgrounds, a lot of times behind the scenes, that really are able to grease the wheels and keep this thing going. A couple of years ago, just a few examples, he got on the phone for a few hours one day at work. He has the liberty to do that from time to time when he wants to. And he raised about $3,000 in lap money for a special end of the year late model race that was held out here in town. He provides colored spoilers as part of sponsorship packages for 4 different traveling series this season. And for the racers, man, does this guy ever help out the racers. Whether it's a piece of metal here and there, custom fab for any part that he needs, or just advice on how to make the car a little better when those racers have that little one idea that, man, I'd just like to run that by him. The effort, really, it knows no end. Earlier in his life, he spent some time behind the wheel racing back when he was a younger single man. A few profiles out there that are pretty funny about Chris. He didn't have time to do anything else. He wasn't going to get married, and he just wanted to race. Boy, certainly life changes, doesn't it? And it was strictly financial reasons why Chris decided to get out of the car. Through that, though, he did forge a lot of lifelong friendships, specifically through his racing. I know one of those folks that is certainly proud of him is Larry Shaw, who's here in the front, a Hall of Fame inductee last year, and Chris holds you in the highest of regards. Chris knew he needed to take care of his family, like a lot of people needed to do, and the Midwest Sheet Metal brand wasn't what it was today, so he had to go to work to build that, and he, boy, has he ever built that brand. A few weeks back, he told me that they were currently shipping race car metal to 44 different states across the country. And I don't know about you, but that's pretty good for a little shop over on Commercial Street, 44 states. He says it's no big deal, but I'm telling you, in this sport, that doesn't just happen. You don't move product to 44 states across the country just by a stroke of luck. Keep in mind as well that while he did this and built the racing business, that's just a sliver of the overall business that Midwest Sheet Metal conducts on a daily basis. 5 years ago, he and his lovely wife, Jan, who's here tonight with their young grandson, Nicholas, started the Midwest Sheet Metal Show Me Challenge at the Show Me 100 up in Wheatland. And what a hit. That race has really become something. Along with that weekend, they move a ton of Midwest Sheet Metal merchandise, including, and I think this is probably Jan's idea, but we're talking about Chris tonight, so we'll let him get the credit for it. The $5 Show Me Challenge t-shirts, and that in itself has taken on a life of its own. Without question, the most fun that I've had in the sport are when I'm able to go along with his lifelong friends, Scott Bass and Chris and I, and we can get in the truck and head to a race that's somewhere around here. That time is truly, it's priceless. He's also introduced me to a bunch of his other friends. Fellow Hall of Fame inductee Lonnie Snodgrass here tonight, and Hall of Famer Terry Brumley's. Some really special people. The reason Chris's business has been so successful is not because he has a lot of race car metal or that he's got a full-time shop. It's because Chris has an extreme value. He places on relationships with people. Somewhere along the way, he realized the value of being good to those you interact with and his infectious personality thrown in there and enjoyed by everybody. Chris is really a one-of-a-kind individual. At this time, as I pull it back together, I'm proud to welcome to the podium the owner of Midwest Sheet Metal, one of the best people you will ever run across in this life, my dear friend, Chris Davis.
Wow, I didn't know I was all that. Not much on public speaking. I've never wrote a speech, but I got a few notes here you'll have to kind of bear with me. Speaking of somebody that's got a heck of a deal here, Trenton Berry. If any of you guys are not on this racingdirt.com, you can get all your racing news right there. It's a cheap deal. You just need to subscribe to racingdirt.com. That's him and his wife Ashley and Spike, their business partner, and I mean it's the real deal. Ernie Watson. We lost a good one. I was at the visitation this morning and was thinking about a lot of the things that me and Ernie have done together. We built a stage for this thing one time, and I think it must have been down at the fairgrounds. We've done that before. And he always had some kind of project, and you just need to keep Mike and Janelle and the whole rest of the family in your thoughts and prayers. This is going to be a tough one. Another guy that I told these guys I didn't want to be first. So I guess they got me. Here I am. And Lonnie Snodgrass sitting right over here. I want to recognize him. He is probably the biggest hidden hero that'll ever be on that plaque that's going to that Sports Hall of Fame. He worked for Larry. The guy is brilliant. I've got to know him the last several years, and he helps us out with some technical stuff at the shop, and he's just a really good guy. If you don't know Lonnie, you need to come introduce yourself to him. My racing was we had a lot of fun. I mean, we started out in street stocks, we went to late models, we won some kind of big challenge thing, and Larry Shaw gave a chassis for that. So now we got 2 late models. So now you got to have 2 motors, and you got to have 2 of this and 2 of that, and good Lord of mercy, we like to broke ourselves. But that's where I met Larry and Cheryl Shaw and their family. They're sitting right down here. Right here is a class act, and his wife and their whole family, Kirk and Kevin and all the grandkids, and me and Schrader were sitting there signing autographs a minute ago. We were talking about the fact that you're a class act. It's one of the best people I've ever met right there. I can't name everybody that's helped me along the way. I look out here and I see so many familiar faces, but Rex Merritt, is he here? He probably won't raise his hand, so if you see him, let me know where he's at. But anyway, him and Penny and Keisha, I went up and down the road 1,000,000 miles with those guys, and I gotta tell a little story on Rex. He's probably hoping I don't, but I gotta tell this. I think the statute of limitations is over, and it's probably gonna be okay, but I'm running a late model at Lebanon, and we're on asphalt, and he's in a mod. And the hot laps have already started. So I'm in my car, Joe Rushing and Dad and them guys are all there, and I've got these racing radio deals. And I see them walk up the hill. I'm still sitting in our pit area because all the cars are lined up to go out on the racetrack. And I look up and here comes Merritt. He's just now getting here. Okay, he's just coming down the hill at 11. He's probably dropped Penny and Keisha off, and here he comes. Well, he always pitted by, so he wheels in there behind us. I'm still sitting in my car. I got a helmet on, I'm strapped in, warming the motor up. And he jumps out, and he's in a mod. And anybody that's ever had a run alcohol motor, so you know what I'm talking about, this thing won't start. So here's Merritt. He's in a hell-bent hurry because he's late, and he's by himself, and he jumps out and jumps up. And now wait a minute, I got to back up here. He pulls in right behind us, but he pulls right next to Walter Doyle. He used to run a mod. Now Walter is pulling his race car trailer with a brand new Chevy pickup. Extended cab, got a big nice camper shell on it. I mean brand new, really nice. And he ain't supposed to be driving this because that's a company truck. But his truck's broke down. So he's pulling his race car trailer with this. So remember I told you that he ain't supposed to be driving his truck. So here comes old Rex. He wheels in there. That alcohol motor won't start. I'm watching this whole deal. There ain't nobody else around. And he gets a 5-gallon gas can and a remote starter. Flips the hood off. He hooks that remote starter up. He's got this gas can. He pours it in the carburetor, hits that remote starter, and this thing burst. And it blew a flame out of there, and the whole gas can catches on fire. What's Merritt do? Whoo! He throws this thing and lands right on top of the camper shell of Walter Doyle pickup. Now this gas is right, this was the damnedest thing I have ever seen. And it was a horrible tragedy, but it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. So Merritt, what's he do? Get a fire extinguisher? No, he jumps in his truck and gets it the hell out of there. Yeah. And I'm watching this whole deal. Now this gas is running out over this truck. It's fully engulfed. Windows are popping out, the tires are blowing, my car's running, and I can hear it. And it's getting so hot, I can't stand it, so I back up. So I get on my radios and I tell them, I said, hey, we got a fire down here. The fire trucks are in the infield. So they have to stop hot laps. Where's Merritt? He's staying killing. So drive, can't talk. So anyway, it's pretty quick, 2 or 3 minutes. Here comes the fire trucks over there. The funny thing is, Walter Doyle's out there hot lapping. So I pulled over here, and here he comes back to his trailer. There ain't nothing left. So there wasn't much to put out time they got over there. Anyway, he gets it. They get the fire put out, and I go out for hot laps and come back in. And Merritt's over here, 4 or 5 trailers down. I walked over and I said, good Lord, what a deal. And he goes, what are you talking about? I said, no. No. But that was one of my Rex Mac stories too. Anyway, Rex and Penny, greatest people. I learned a lot from Rex. Great people, and I went to the Lucas Oil banquet, the Lucas Oil racetrack banquet that Dan puts on up at Kinderhook this year. I went up there with Toby and Shannon Aton, and never been to one. But I was hunting up there with Forrest and Earl and those guys, so I went up there one night. Me and Toby and Shannon went, and they gave Rex Merritt what was called a Lifetime Achievement Award, a Forrest Lucas Lifetime Achievement Award. And I had no idea they were going to do it, but I was really glad I was there to see it. Rex you're a legend, buddy. I appreciate your friendship. Our racing deal, it just got way too expensive. We sold out. I remember when me and Dad bought our first set of $1,000 rods. This was after I had built 400 grenade motors, you know. And Jimmy Owens told me today, rods are $4,500 a set now, you know. So it's got nothing but worse. Gene Snyder was a great, he's gone now, but he built our engines, built the only engines we could ever get to live. And now these motors that you guys run is, Schrader was telling me today, he's got six motors. Yeah, he said he tears up a lot of stuff. So I met my wife Jan, and we raised a family and ran a business, and it was real hard for me to go to the races and watch. I couldn't hardly do it. That sucked because I wanted to be out there racing. So we just didn't go. We raised our kids, and then I got to Scott Bassgood, one of my best friends in this whole world, and me decided to start going to some of these races. And I thought, well, maybe I can make this part of my business where my hobby maybe don't cost me near as much, you know. So that's what I done. I started meeting people, and I met Jimmy Owens, and who would have thought it, but me and Jimmy are best friends. I talk to him every day. Jimmy and Earl Pearson, and it's just led me to, this business deal I've had, Daryl Lanigan, Moyer, Blomquist. There's been so many people help me do this, and it's just been a word of mouth thing, you know. And we've sold with Schrader, we've sold it. The list just goes on and on. It's just been really, really good deal. And we got involved with this Lucas Oil Dirt Late Model Series, and that led to a lot of national attention. And then I met Forrest Lucas. I don't know how many of you guys know him, but he's for real. First time I ever met him, we were at Lucas Oil Stadium. Who's playing for? The Colts. I don't know. Stick and ball sports. If it don't burn gas, I'm out. So anyway, I'm standing there. They got this banquet at the mezzanine of the Lucas Oil Stadium. This place holds 40 million people, and there's like 200 of us. And I'm standing there looking over this field. Me and Jimmy Owens were standing there, and I thought Jimmy was still there. And this guy walks up and he goes, "What do you think about this place?" I said, "It'd hold a hell of a bunch of round bales." And this guy says, he starts laughing. He says, "I'm Forrest Lucas." And we just kind of hit it off right there, you know. And then another story, we got hung up at Forrest's house. Me and Earl Pearson missed our shuttle bus from the banquet one night. And we ended up, Earl was going to show me the inside of Forrest's house. The mansion, they call it. Unbelievable. But our bus left. So here we are, nobody's there. Forrest says, "Don't worry about it, I'll get you home after a while." He went and got a sleeve of saltine crackers and a jar of peanut butter and a gallon of milk. Me and him, he sat there and buttered peanut butter crackers for me and Earl for 3 hours. That was the best part of my whole trip to PRI. He don't want to know it. He don't want to talk about what he does. He wants to know what you do, you know. And he's just I can go on and on about the Hubert family. The Lucas guys, Dan and his staff. They've all been great. My buddy Scott Bass. He's the one that goes with me to all these races. He's the only guy I know that I can call at 4 o'clock and say, "You want to go racing?" And he'll go, "Yeah, let me feed a few more cows and we'll go." Everybody else has got to have a plan. But I'm lucky. I've got the time I've been around racing. I got to race with Larry Phillips. I've dealt with all the legends, what I call the legends: Billy Moyer, Jimmy and Earl and Lanigan and O'Neill. I'm a great friend with Barry Wright. Forrest Lucas. Very few people can say that, but I've been blessed. I'm gonna wind her up here. None of this could ever, from my first started racing, could ever been done without my mom and dad that are somewhere. There they are, right over there. I couldn't begin. I started that racing deal on my own. I got got out of my budget real quick. My guys at the shop, Bruce and Jim and the whole crew, Cole Wells and Kyle are here somewhere. I mean, Scott Bass again, it's been a great inspiration for me. My smoking hot wife is sitting somewhere right over there with my 11-month-old grandson. My priorities have changed a little bit. My biggest fans call me Pawpaw now. I've got 7 grandkids, 5 little girls and 2 little boys, and ain't one of them over 4 years old, and I cherish every second I get with them. But I just want to tell everybody thanks, and please keep Mike Mittler in your thoughts and prayers. He's got a little procedure coming up in February, and thank you all for everything.
Now we'll get the mic situated back for everybody that's not 6'5" here tonight. We'll move now to the Legends category, and tonight's second inductee is Ken Schrader. And we're thrilled to have Kenny with us here tonight, and to do his introduction is the world-famous Dale Roper.
I'll try to get up here without running off the end of this. I've run over a lot of things in my life, so try not to run off here. I don't know really what you could say about this guy I'm going to present. If anybody here, evidently you are a race fan, or you're married to a race fan, or at least you know a race fan, you've heard of this guy. He's raced from border to border and coast to coast and about everywhere in between. And I'm just doing a little figuring. I know what year he was born, so I'm assuming that he's raced about 42 or 43 years. Is that pretty close? A little more, he said, so I'm not too far off. But I know that he started over 700 with the cup races, what they call, used to call Winston Cup and Sprint Cup, and the top class in that. He started probably by now, probably 740 or 50, which there's not very many guys that have done that. But anyway, I've been friends with Kenny for a long time. He knew my brother before he knew me, and they were good friends. My brother and his dad were pretty close. Kenny will tell you the story about when he was about 16 or something, just starting to race, and he was racing this little short track in St. Louis, 3rd mile, and he'd heard about this big old high-banked half-mile track in Rolla, and he really wanted to go race there, but his dad said, no, you can't go there. That's too long, too big, too dangerous. And I guess Kenny said something to Dean, and Dean said, well, I'll go talk to Bill. And I guess the story went, he started to leave, but I think Dean started to leave that night. And Kenny run him down and said, well, you going to talk to my dad? And he said, yeah. So he went over and bought a 6-pack of beer, went over and sat down talking to Bill. And Kenny said, I didn't know what they were saying, so they stayed away. But anyway, next morning at breakfast, Bill, Kenny's dad, said, well, I think we'll go to Rolla Saturday night to race. Kenny said that week in school, he didn't know much about geography, but he knew it was about 90 miles to Rolla. So he didn't have to know much else. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here. He can tell you stories from now till the sun comes up, a lot more than I can. I've raced with him a few times. He did run over me one time, and he said, I asked him why he did that, and I happened to got lucky. He got tied up. I got by him on the front straightaway. is at Cedar Rapids, Iowa, in a modified race. We had a yellow flag. He was right behind me, and just before we got to green to go, wham! He really drilled me. After the race, I said, "Well, what'd you do that for?" And he said, "You're not supposed to run over or pass the star on the front straightaway." So that's about the only story I knew about Kenny. I'll let him talk. He can talk probably for a long time.
I'd rather run in the friggin' wall than stand up and talk. And especially now with the safer barriers, it ain't shit when you hit in there. Dale, that's your story. You can tell it however you want. Your age, you don't remember anyway. I remember parts of it. It wasn't quite like that, but I might have hit you. Everything he said about Dean, Dean helped me so much when I first started running a midget. Tony, who's had a fantastic career going, he qualified a car for us at I-70 one time and sat it on the pole, and I was somewhere else racing, come in the next day, and we led the thing from the back for most of the day until I screwed up. It was an honor to be asked to come here and be inducted. I figured there was one person short coming up with enough names, because I'm hell for sure not a pioneer, and I'm a long way from a legend. He said it started 700 and something races. Well, it did. Only won 4 of them damn things. But Mikey Waltrip has only won 4 also, and nobody else has ever milked 4 races longer than Mikey Waltrip and I have milked 4 races. I'm still milking them damn things. Always had so much respect for the area Springfield racers, the Ozark racers. The first one I met was Larry when he came down to our little track in St. Louis in 1967. I would have been 12. And he put an ass kicking on our guys so friggin' bad. It was amazing. And I guess he would go back and he didn't tell his buddies what was happening. And we didn't have internet and all that stuff. So they just knew he was going somewhere. When they found out and they all started coming up, we were screwed. I mean, our shit wouldn't go fast enough to do anything anymore. And I wasn't racing, but I knew the guys were screwed then. Just so many good racers, and just went so fast, whether it was asphalt or pavement. Carl, you had a like a real career, but I'm telling you, when you get inducted, you quit now, you're retired. You're getting friggin' old, buddy. You know how them drivers keep getting younger? Well, you're getting old quicker, I'm just telling you. All this shit's going down, it's getting you flowing. Larry Shaw, Larry and Cheryl, Sean Fields, you've helped us so much. Rex Merritt, he's been a big help to us in our modifieds for a number of years now. Just so many good racers down here, and we're just honored to be inducted. Thank you very much. It'll be the first time.
Well, these inductions are special and they're a lot of fun. This is a great one. This is one of the ones you'll remember forever. What a treat these stories are tonight. Back to the Pioneer category for our third inductee. The Pioneer is Dan Williams, and his son presenting is Sean Williams.
Got to get this thing lowered back down for the midgets. So my father grew up around racing in a racing family. He grew up watching cars owned by his father, driven by Roger Chisholm, Buddy Hall. You know, they were just regular kids growing up here. They grew up by Fast Night Park. They had push carts. They had these wooden push carts. They used to race down the hill with all the neighbor kids. They'd beat up on the neighbor kids and try to outrun them. You know, they started kind of getting out of hand. At one point, they had a tricycle with a 5-horse Briggs and Stratton on it. And I believe, if the story goes right, one of the friends came over and crashed it. Is that right? And JW cut it in half with the cutting torch. So I guess they had to take care of that before somebody got killed. So in 1975, Dave started racing, and my father started helping him, working on his cars a little bit. And in 1977, he built his first car. They built Dave a late model that they ran on pavement. I believe you guys ran here at the fairgrounds, is that correct? For the first half of the season, and decided to switch it over to dirt and ended up winning the second half points at Bolivar that first season. They continued to play with that a little bit, and then in 1979, they built a hobby stock as Daryl started racing. He won quite a few, a little Chevy too. They won quite a few races with it over the next couple of years, including the Missouri Dirt Track Championship at Bolivar. In late 80, he decided that it was time to try driving, and had a brief stint as a driver at the end of 80 and through 81. And there's some debate on how that went. He says that he was a clean driver. That's not exactly how I've heard it from others. So we're just going to leave that at that. So in the spring of 82, Dave and Jed Edby went to Fort Smith, Arkansas, and they heard this grumblings about a 10,000 win street stock race that was going to happen at Crawford County Speedway that fall. And they came home and decided they should build a car and go run that deal. And they dubbed Roger Chisholm to pilot that car. And they went down there and ended up winning that race. And that fall they went to Pennsboro. They'd been running, up to that point, they'd been running a sportsman car around the area, and late model a little bit. And they saw Charlie Schwartz was there and had this wedge car. And I know, Kenny, I'm sure you've seen a bunch of Charlie's wedge stuff. And so they decided, they came home, got looking at the rules, and the rules around here didn't say they couldn't do it. Didn't necessarily say they could, but didn't say they couldn't. And so they put a wedge body on this street stock there, this sportsman car they had. And they won 20 shows that first year, the championship at Monette. And the interesting part of that is they didn't win, or they didn't lose a single race at Monette that year. In 1985, as the mods going, they built their first modified, and then they raced modifieds. They were pretty solid through the modifieds through the rest of the 80s. As the 90s turned, he kind of paid more attention to my racing stuff and kind of got away from the rest of it. And, you know, throughout our deal, he really was, well, I think what made him good was he didn't stick inside that box. He wasn't afraid to get out of the box and try something new. It seems like as I was studying all this and looking through this, a lot of the things that his greatest accomplishments happened when somebody else went to the racetrack and came back with an idea. You know, Dave and them went to Fort Smith, and they come back and said, let's build this car. Dave and Jed Edby went to Pennsboro and come back and said, let's put a wedge body on that car. Jed Edby and I went to Muskogee to Thunderbird to date the situation a little bit to have a Tampa race. And at that time, the late models were all starting to lift a little bit and use the left rear. We came home and decided this Pro 4 we had needed to do that. And so, in late 99, we were planning on trying it. The Boogeyman hadn't run yet, and we were going to try it. Of course, it got rained out. Pretty sure that would have been an ugly situation. But we ended up taking it to Monette,
and got black flagged because it was doing it, because no one had ever seen a Pro 4 do that. So we decided after 2000 it was time to do something different. We were going to build a factory stock to run around here. In 2000, we kind of wandering around looking at stuff, trying to figure out what we were going to do. And Dad was sitting, and I'm sure you were sitting in the right lane at Kearney and Kansas Expressway, because I know you're going to go to McDonald's and get a biscuit. And in the lane next to him, there was a bobtailed semi-truck. And when he saw it take off, thinking about his Leaf spring car that he was getting ready to build, he watched that rear end rack and said, you know what, if I don't tie that left rear spring, I can get it to lift. And so that took a little work. I mean, it was not seamless, but we got through it, and we had a very successful tenure there. During that process, led to maybe one of his biggest accomplishments, and I don't know if he would say that, but he had a driver that was maybe 120 pounds soaking wet, gonna put him in a 3,200 pound stock car with 10-inch tires. Good luck steering that. So he went and started reading, tried to find something that would make this car steer easier. He found out, he thought he knew what he needed, but no one would talk to him. And he got talking to Larry Phillips, and he got him in touch with a gentleman at Lee Power Steering. He called them. Phillips said, just give him a call, tell him I told you to call him, and see if, and finally he picked him and got him to tell what he thought he needed to know. And now we run 3 steering boxes trying to figure that deal out to find that part. But when to give you an idea of how easy these cars would steer, we were at Midway one night, and it kept raining, and we were out there packing the track, and J.D. Kelly come by me, and he had the steering wheel on top of his car, and he was driving it with the steering shaft. And so we goofed off that night, but you could turn that car, you could take the steering shaft off, and you could turn it by hand. Those steering boxes have won almost every major modified and every major street stock race in the country today. His work ethic and his never say never attitude have been huge to the success of over 200 wins as a mechanic. I'm proud to introduce my father, Dan Williams.
Thank you, Sean, for those kind words. As I think in the last week over the years that I've raced, the thing you remember, you don't really remember the races, you remember the people that you met at the races. Like every year when you go to the 4-State Championship, it's more like going to a family reunion than it is really going to a race, because people will go to the 4-State Championship when they won't really go to a lot of other races. But I was lucky to have good drivers, and of course, the thing was that they let me do whatever I wanted to the car, and sometimes it was bad and sometimes it was good. But I like to thank my dad for giving me the resources to build whatever I wanted, and thank Mom for letting him give me the resources that I needed, and thank my wife for putting up with me being gone a couple nights a week, working on a race car. If you any racers and you talk about to somebody, well, this is what I do for a hobby, and they're like, well, I thought about getting a race car and racing, and like, well, it's just not something you do, it's a lifestyle. And if you're not committed to that lifestyle, then you're not going to be successful at all, But, and then he was talking to Larry about some ideas that I had. The thing about Larry is the one thing he loved talking about race cars, and it didn't matter. He'd sit down and he'd talk to you for hours, just about whatever you wanted, But the thing that Larry told me is that he looks at every car at the track, because he said, you might see a car that can't run last in the B feature, but he may have one thing on that car that'll help you, So he taught me to have an open mind. Don't just blow somebody off because they're not running up in the front, the big dogs. But anyway, but at Tony Roper's funeral, there was a local reporter, and I don't remember if it was Ned or who it was, but they were interviewing Larry, and Larry said that being part of the racing family was the greatest honor in the world to him, because those greatest people in the world. And I'll have to agree with that, you know, and if you don't believe that, then if you went to Ernie's visitation today, you'd know that, because they all turned out for Ernie. So anyway, that's about all I got to say. Thank you.
We'll now make our way back to the legend category. The next inductee, a driver that is unfortunately no longer with us tonight. The inductee is Daryl Williams. To receive the award will be Dayton Williams and his two daughters, and to give the introduction will be Kevin Fletcher.
First off, I'd like to congratulate all of this year's inductees. I think it's a super good group this year going in. And like I said, a great pick on all you guys. Congratulations. Daryl Williams, we lost him about 3 years ago now, if I'm not mistaken on a date. And, you know, if you knew Daryl, and he was one of the best ones who was. He a good friend, and I'm lucky. Dan Williams is one of them over here. I'm lucky that John Williams, well, I say I am, I'm proud of the fact that JW, Dave, Dan, and now Daryl, all three as a family, is going into the reunion because they're just super great people. And I think it's a major accomplishment as a family. I wish you'd give them all a round of applause. And actually, Sean, I think I could use his notes because he had everything I was going to say, but I'll let you go ahead and say it. I'll repeat it if I have to. Daryl started out, like Sean said, in that little Chevy too, won many features. You know, he won that the track championship, the Missouri Dirt Track Championship in 1980. Ran a modified in 1984 when they started the Airport Speedway. Lance McNally, when he built that, Daryl and Dave and all the guys, JW built the motors, Dan built chassis, and they ran at the Airport Speedway. And they was a force. There was a force to be reckoned with wherever they raced at. And we would go everywhere. I mean, I traveled a lot with those guys, and you know, they didn't care where they went. They was there to race, and they're there for the competition part. Daryl raced asphalt, raced dirt, it didn't matter. He just loved to race. He raced go-karts. He quit the big cars and actually thought, well, I'll take a break and I'll try something different. He raced go-karts in 1980, I believe it was, won the ICAB championship. He traveled all around doing that. But it's like it didn't matter. If he had a, if it had a motor on, Daryl would do it. He loved the fact to race. And it's like I said, how many here knew Daryl Williams? You can't raise your hand. I'd give anything he's back with us. Daryl was a friend to everybody. And a great friend he was. Receiving tonight's going to be Dayton Williams, his son, and also his 3 daughters. Yeah, the 3 of you now. It's 3, by the way. So, you girls, if you would, well, let's let Dayton come up first, and I'll bring you up here. Dayton, tell a word or two, please.
Get my notes out here. All right. Well, first of all, I'm not very good at talking in front of people, so just kind of bear with me here. First of all, I want to start off by thanking Kevin Fletcher, great family friend the past couple years, and yeah, like you said, we'd give anything to have him back. But can we get another round of applause for Kevin? Actually, what do you think he does? Alrighty, well, like Kevin said, Sean, Dan, everyone here, my dad was something. Some people would just say an adrenaline junkie. He actually built a luge board for my sisters over there, and
So he had the bright idea, he was home alone. He had the bright idea to ride it down the biggest hill in Greene County. And we won't get into deep with that, but let's just say my mom came home to him stuck to the sheets, road rash. It's good. And then I believe there was a zip line through our forest. Like Kevin said, if it had an engine or wheels, anything, he'd get on it or in it. You know, he might not have been the smartest individual, but we definitely like having him around. So, yeah, definitely into dirt, asphalt. He ran late models, modifies everything. He struggled to get into asphalt a little bit because my grandma Beverly said he'd probably kill himself doing that. Finally talked her into it. I'm not sure how that happened, but anyways, a couple people here I want to thank. Bob Aton, is he up anywhere here? He's up here. Okay, right. Painted all the race cars for us. Was a big part of all our success. Can we get a round of applause for him also, actually? Well, I was actually born February 17th, 2001, the day before the Daytona 500 that we actually did lose Dale Earnhardt. And that was the day of the nationwide race, and maybe some of you remember it was under rain delay. So my mom was in labor, she was stressing out, I'm sure. My dad was twiddling his thumbs, and don't know if he was very concerned. He was worried about the race. It was under rain delay, and the doctor came in, he's like, well, looks like you're ready. I was like, my dad jumped up and said, well, if we can get it in the rain delay, that would just be great. So, out I come, like 15 minutes later, here comes the nationwide race back on, so I guess it worked out pretty all right. But yeah, once again, I want to thank the association. It's a great honor. I wish he was here to receive the award. He would be beyond stoked for this. I really appreciate it, and if anyone has any stories, which I'm sure there are some in the house, definitely stop and let any of our clan know about it. So I guess I'll call up my sisters up to the stage because they have some stories that I'm not able to share. So round of applause for them also.
All right, I think this is low enough. All right. I feel very privileged to be able to accept this award on my father's behalf. He would have definitely loved to be here. He would have loved this. He would have loved bullshitting with all of the racers that are here, telling ridiculous stories. I tried to harness his energy before I came here tonight, so I smoked a pack of Marlboro Reds and I drank a six-pack on my way here. Now I'm just ready to bullshit, so pretty honestly though, I really hope that all of you had the pleasure of meeting him, whether it be at Dick's Machine Shop or at the racetrack with the Williams Racing team. He was a great guy and a great father. When he taught me how to drive, he taught me to drive with 2 feet, just like you in racing. He also told me not to speed on the road. If I wanted to go fast, he'd buy me a race car. So, love and miss you, Dad.
Alright, I don't have any notes, so I guess I'm just going to kind of wing it, but I want to say thank you to Kevin, and I also want to thank the Ozarks Area Racers Association for honoring my dad. I think he would be humbled to be here among all of the other people that are here today. I have 2 things that I kind of want to say about my dad today, and one of them, I think, encompasses his sense of humor. This is a story that has been told to me several times by my dad and other people, so I don't know, Dan might know this one, and if I have a detail wrong, I'm really sorry. But I guess one night they had raced at Monette, and they left Monette, and Dad wanted to stop and get some beer on the way home, but they didn't sell beer on Sundays then. So Dad, and I'm going to take Davis's quote on this one too and say the statute of limitations is up. They went ahead and stopped at the gas station anyway, and Dad went in and he grabbed the beer. And the guy said, of course, which Dad already knew, "We don't sell beer on Sundays." And Dad slapped some money on the counter and said, "You do now." And then they went and got in the truck and started to leave. But I guess maybe they were thinking about the fact that Dick's Machine and Motor Supply is slapped across the back of the race car that's on the trailer when they start driving out of the parking lot of the gas station. So kind of a funny one there. The other thing that I want to say about my dad, it deals more with family. And whenever he raced Saturdays at Lebanon, I think it was almost every single Saturday night, me and my sister would beg to go to Big Daddy's truck stop on the way home from Lebanon. And we'd always tell my stepmom Patty, we want to go to Big Daddy's on the way home, and she would say, "Well, you know what you have to do? You have to bat your eyes at your dad because he'll agree if you do that." So we'd always do that, and he almost always said yes. And it wasn't that we wanted to go have milkshakes late at night or have sodas. Everybody went, and everybody sat around the table, and everybody talked, and it was just such a great time. And it was just fun memories and real family. Racing's a really family-oriented sport, I think, and that is a great thing about it. So.
One of my favorite things about my dad was that even after he stopped racing, it was still such a big part of his life and a big part of his family. My little brother and I had go-karts, and that was always a big thing that we all did together. Another thing, I remember him disassembling a motorized scooter he got me for Christmas. He was pretty sure he could alter the engine to get it to go a little faster, which I'm sure was completely safe. He did the same thing to 2 motorized scooters, if I'm not mistaken. That was always his thing. He would always build us something. I mean, if it wasn't building a car, that's fine. He wasn't racing anymore. He would just build us something else crazy. Was it Dayton that mentioned the luge? I mean, that was originally intended for us. I'm pretty thankful that he took that on the test ride. Another thing was the zip line. He always made sure that safety was first priority. There was no stopping mechanism. Oh yeah, we did wear helmets. You're right. There was no stopping mechanism on the zip line though. It was a rope that he was 100% sure he would grab and catch for us. So it was always an adventure with him. We all miss him, and I'm so grateful for everyone. And like Dayton said, if you have a good story about him, we would all appreciate to hear it. So find one of us and just give us a smile for that. All right, thank you, everybody.
Man, I didn't drink a case of beer and smoke a pack of Marlboro Reds today, but might have been a little more entertaining if I would have. We'll move back to the Pioneer category now. Inductee number 5 is Bob Aton, and again, we'll welcome to the stage Kevin Fletcher to give the introduction.
Just so everybody knows, I was involved in a few of those stories with Daryl too, and the statute of limitations, I'm not saying nothing, but I'll tell you. Yeah, Bob Aton, he's one of those guys that's been around a long time, and he left us. But you know, he's one of those guys that you've always admired. If you've ever known Bob Aton, he's an artist, a pure artist. But he's a racer on top of that. He raced go-karts. He's raced a lot of go-kart races, in fact, 300 wins as of now. He's ran midgets, he's ran late models, he's ran modifieds, he's ran sprint cars. Actually, the AJ Foyt replica over here, not a replica, a true sprint car, that's Bob Aton's. And if you want to, it's not vinyl letters, by the way, neither. I'd hate to say something to him about that. But I mean, that's some of his work he does. Check it out. It's super, super good, super clean. But like I said, as an artist, he's, I don't know, have you ever had a car lettered by Bob Aton? That's right. Big knock back here. Floyd's had one. Bob Aton was a man. I mean, you know, you had him and you had George Stark years ago. I wouldn't really call it competition, but, you know, I saw Bob letter a lot of cars up at Dick's Machine Shop. And I'd sneak back here and I'd watch him and Dan and yell at me. Let him do his work, get back, get out of there. But you just get mesmerized by the work that he can do. I mean, he can make a number, a letter, look perfect just with simple strokes of his hand. I mean, he's great, seriously is. You know, he did do Willie Crane's cars. He did Don Cordalis. I mean, this is in the old days. This is when he was just starting out. You know, did every car, I guess, out of Dick's Machine Shop probably. He did a bunch. And, you know, in the day, if you was a racer, if you wanted the car to look like a race car, you called Bob Aton. That's just plain and simple. And like I said, he can do anything. He's a fabricator. He had a 1937 Chevy Coupe, I think it was, one year out here at the swap meet, the fairgrounds. And God, I love that car. I don't know how many hours of work, tin work, that Bob had put in this car. But it had a custom dash, it had custom door panels, it had everything custom about this car. I mean, from the chassis to the entire car. Well, this car wound up going on, I think it went to, was it Arizona? Is that where that one went to? No, Denver. Reno, exactly, went to Reno. And won a big car show, and I mean not some little, 100 car deal. I mean, it was a major show. He's just been involved in so much. You know, he's involved in a lot now. And, he went to Denver, North Carolina. Probably the best thing he could have did, and he probably should have did that 20 years sooner, to be truthful about it. But he went there, and he lettered a little bit by hand. Then that dang vinyl come along, and he learned how to wrap cars a little bit. And they got into making carbon fiber, installing carbon fiber, making molds for carbon fiber. I mean, high tech all the way. You know, and I tell you what, I've admired his work to today. Actually, Bob pinstriped a truck I had years ago. You remember that? I wasn't going to say nothing about that. I drawed this out how I want him to pinstripe my truck. Man, I love my truck. I went and picked it up, and it wasn't nothing like what I'd drawn out.
You can't tell an artist.
Yeah, you don't tell an artist what to do. That's exactly right. And on top of it, there were these little bitty white dots that he had airbrushed onto the pinstripes. And so I'm staring at it and staring at it, and he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Oh, it's all right. I like it. I really do." Well, he knew I wasn't too fond of the truck, and he said, "If you don't like it, you don't owe me." I said, "That's not the deal." I said, "You did your work, I'll pay you." And so I paid him, and so I met my wife. I met her someplace that night after that. I'm in the truck, and she's looking at the truck. So what the hell is that? It's got dots all over it. So Bob did it. I said, "I don't know what to do," and she goes, "Take it back and take the dots off." And I said, he said something about it would take people's eyes off of any flaws in the truck, which it had a few. I'm not saying it didn't. And so anyway, we grew accustomed to the dots. One day I was rubbing it out, getting ready for a car show. I rubbed a dot off. And Bob was in North Carolina. How do you get a dot replaced these days? And so my wife come home and she looked at it and she, "What's up with the truck?" And I said, "What do you mean?" "It's missing a dot." "Yeah, you like it?" No, I guess you gotta take them all off now. So that was the story where my dots went to, by the way, you know. But no, it's like I said, like I said, he's a true artist, one of the best there ever was. I'm glad to see him come in tonight to the Ozark Area Racing Reunion. If you would, please give a big round of applause. Good friend, Bobby.
Just before I came up here on stage, my girlfriend asked me, she said, "Are you at all nervous about speaking tonight?" And I said, "I don't know, why would you ask such a question?" She says, "Well, you're in the women's restroom in the stall next to me peeing." She said, "It gets worse." I said, "How could it get worse than that?" She said, "You're sitting down." I was supposed to have Harry Lightfoot tonight. When Rick Sharp called me and told me about this, he said, "You know, you have to have somebody introduce you." And I said, in a millisecond, I thought of Harry Lightfoot. I admire him so much. All the things he's done, he's the master of history, and I hate it that he didn't get to call me. He called me this afternoon and he goes, "Man, I'm sick." He said, "I'm not going to stand up there with a rag and blowing snot in front of everybody." So Kevin filled in, and thank you very much, Kevin. I guess I'm up here tonight because of the tale of two Bobs. My Uncle Bob Aton raced out here at the 5th Mile Fairgrounds with his brother-in-law, John Carpenter, that drove the car, and some of the old timers remember him. So he got my mom and dad and my sister and I addicted to auto racing. We spent every Friday night out here all through the 60s, and they couldn't throw a green flag if we weren't in the grandstands. After my uncle quit, they quit racing, Mom and Dad was socializing with Bob Davis, Bob and Frankie Davis. One day they were at my mom and Dad's house. I was 15 years old, and I had a whole collection of model cars I'd painted and lettered and made, you know, all these crazy model cars. So I got the idea at 15 years old to pick them cars up and take them into the living room and lay them down in Bob Davis's lap. And I said, "Would you mind if I lettered your car that you're building?" And that was 1969. And I had him on the spot in front of Mom and Dad. What was he going to say, right? So he let me do that, and within the end of the year, he had taken me around, and I had met everybody, Willie Crane and John Kendig and Cordalis, and I ended up meeting everybody. And I think by the end of the year that I was turned 16, I'd done over 100 cars around here. Of course, the big secret to that was that I did them for $15. And if you knew George Stark, he chewed me out one day. He says, "Young man, we've got to keep the price up so we can make some money doing this." I know everybody always say they're honored to be up here, and my honor tonight, honestly, is I'm being inducted with the people that I am. So many friends. I'll start with Schrader. I was so honored that he went off and made the sacrifice to go race in Winston Cup so I could get his USAC midget ride. I've always appreciated that. I always wanted to outrun Schrader when I raced against him, and one night we were in Missouri, Farmington at a UMP race. I lined up behind Kenny, we took off, I passed him, I ended up winning the race, and I never knew what happened to Schrader. I thought, I'd finally outrun him. They were doing driver interviews before the race, and they said, "Well, you know, Kenny, we've never seen you start in the back before. What happened?" He says, "I forgot to shift the car into high gear." Remember that? Do now. I still haven't outrun Schrader. I know everybody from the state of Missouri is proud to know Carl Edwards, and we're so proud of him. I still laugh when I think about Carl running up to the 22 pit box, and I can hear the crew chief on the pit box. "Holy crap, here comes Carl. Everybody put your helmets on. Grab me a jack handle, hurry up." It turned out different, but I'm very proud to know him. Chris Davis. Chris and I did something one time that I never want to try again. He and I built a truck and a trailer. Of course, we had other helpers, and they're here. We built a truck and a trailer in 2.5 months from the ground up and refurbished the race car and went to Florida and raced for 21 out of 23 days. That's the hardest I've ever worked in my life, and that's a memory that we'll have forever. The Williams family, I mean, I appreciate them mentioning me a while ago, but that was a good time going to Dick's Machine Shop, because JW and Beverly were so great people, and And Beverly always had baby food jars for me to pour some paint in so she could touch the cars up. But I always loved the Williams family. Here, get a drink. Jim Campbell. I got to tell a story about Jim Campbell. I know it's getting late, but one day Ferris Collier called me and he said, I got 3 cars. I got my car and I got 2 customer cars to do. So everybody knew I wasn't an early riser. He said, you better get down here. It's going to be a long day to Kimberling City. So I got around, went down there, lettered Ferris's car, laid out Jim Campbell's car, pretty well had it done, and I started laying out the lettering on the 3rd car. And I drew what Ferris had handed me, a piece of paper, what this 3rd car, and I didn't know who this other guy was. So I laid everything out, and I put my yardstick up above the roof and drew 2 lines, and I said, Ferris, what's the driver's name? And he said, Joe Fast. And I looked at him, and I've never known, Ferris talks a lot, but I've never known him to be a smartass. And so I said, Ferris, what's the guy's name? And he goes, Joe Fast. And I thought, all right, well, I went on about my business and did some more work on that car. And I turned around one more time and said, Ferris, and he told me the same answer. About that time, it's late evening, the door swings open, Jim Campbell comes in with another guy, and they walk over to Ferris, and they talk for 2 seconds, and they all turn in unison and start laughing at me. Like what? And so the guy starts laughing, he walks over, he sticks his hand out, and he says, hi, I'm Joe Fast. And I said, did Ferris tell you to say that? That's my memories of Jim Campbell. Who else up here? I met Mike Mittler tonight, and it was a pleasure, and we're all pulling for him. My first memory of Lonnie was when he worked for Larry Phillips, and Larry was into building lightweight race cars. And I'll never forget lettering the car and looking over at Lonnie, and he's over notching the tubing with tin snips. Larry was building a car that was just really, really, really lightweight. That's the first memory of Lonnie. I want to honor some people tonight, and this goes way, way, way beyond thank you. I mean, this is friendship, it's mentorship, it's people that I hope I don't get emotional about it, but some people have a huge influence on your life, and such people as Ken and Lena Essering. Kenny is one of the nicest people I have ever met in my life, and did so many things for me. And William Todd was always there, built a heck of a race car for me one time. Kim and Becky Keith, I don't know how many dozens of race cars I've done for Kim and Becky Keith, but they're the greatest people on the planet. Bill Fry has been such a good friend to me, and we talk all the time and laugh about some of the crazy things that happened at the racetrack. I could tell you 100 Rex Merritt stories, but everybody's already gone into that. But they're funny. Butch Scott, when I moved to North Carolina, I lost all my contacts. You know, when you race, you have a friend that works at the parts store, and you got a guy that's a transmission guy, and you just got friends everywhere. Boy, did I miss Butch when I went to North Carolina. You can walk into a parts store nowadays, and the kids will go, "What's the make and the model?" So I can look it up on the computer. Butch, you tell him I need a vent for a 9-inch Ford rear end, and he just goes back and gets it. You know, I miss all that in those days. And very most important people that I want to honor tonight is back in the mid-70s sometime, I went up to the Springfield Pool Company right up the street from me, and I asked the Randall family if I could race their go-kart on dirt. And they said, yeah, I'll get that thing out of the shed and go see what you can do with it. And I took it home and fiddled with it for about a week, and next Monday morning I walked in with the trophy dash for the trophy and the A feature trophy, and handed them to Doug's dad, Jack. And for the next 20 years, Jack Randall never missed an event with me. He went to the Knoxville Nationals with me. He went to the Belleville Midget Nationals. We've been to Yuma, Arizona together. We've been to Florida. We went to Minot, North Dakota, and he went everywhere. So my biggest thank you and utmost respect, Doug Randall's here tonight. I want to say thanks to the Randall family. I mean, they came in times when sign painters can't afford to race. So to end this, I want to share my award tonight with Doug Randall, sitting right there, my dad, John Aton, and our crew chief, Doug Long. I don't know where Doug's at, but he's here. But I share this with you guys. Thank you very much.
So we'll continue on with the program tonight. We'll move back to the legend category for our 6th inductee of the evening. And it is Jim Campbell. And to do the presenting honors, Mike Perry.
First of all, I'd like to say it's an honor. I got a phone call. Bill Crooks is supposed to be doing this, and he had surgery a week ago, and he thought he would be able to be here, and he wasn't able to be here. But let's keep him in our prayers. He had some arteries cleaned out, and he is doing better this week. As far as me and Jim, I was just a teenage boy at that time. And as most of you know, my dad had the tire shop that sold the Goodyear racing tires. My brother, he would change them, and then he would throw them off the side, and I'd do the air and the measuring. And that's where we come acquainted with Jim a lot. And Dad always cherished Jim. He was a class act. When he would pull in, he was a class act. So, a lot of this is what Bill has wrote. I've added a little bit to it, and hope this do honors for him. Jim Campbell, he comes from Harrison, Arkansas. He has his wife, Barbara, has a son and two daughters. And he was telling me he's got a whole crew out here, about what, 30 or 40? 30 of them came up from Arkansas to see this, and I welcome you all. Jim owned the Campbell, O's, and Cadillac dealership in Harrison. He started racing after he had an accident at the dealership, breaking both his legs, and started his first race while he was still on crutches. His racing career was around from 72 to 84. At first, Jim raced on dirt tracks, Fayetteville, Muskogee, ran Bolivar, Monette. It was mentioned earlier, he was always with his longtime friend, and if you want to know his real last name, it was Joe Daly. But they called him Joe Fast. So, there he is. Both drove, he's got this wrote down as Monte Carlos was built with the help of Ferris Collier. He owned and he drove two of Larry Phillips's cars, and Jim was always one that he knew that Larry Phillips was going to put him in a good car. Jim raced here at the fairgrounds on the asphalt. He held his own with Mark Martin, Rusty Wallace, Larry Phillips, and he raced every Friday night. He would be here. He won a championship at the Fayetteville, co-champion with Rusty Wallace, and tied in points in 77. This is the part that I really like about him. He was introduced a lot of times at the racetracks as Gentleman Jim. He won Sportsman of the Year, most popular driver, at least 4 times during his racing career. This is from Bill Crooks himself. He said this was such an honor to be with Jim and to be on his pit crew. Said he had many good times and a whole book of stories, and he wanted to tell you congratulations, Jim. It does me honor to be able to do this for Jim. And I'd like to introduce you to Gentleman Jim, Mr. Jim Campbell.
Well, I don't know what I could add too much, but he was right about Larry Phillips. Of course, he was the great one around here. Everybody knew Larry. He built my cars. All but Ferris Collier put one together, and he sent me down there to well, because during off season he couldn't get to it. Ferris never did build it fast enough to pass him very much, so. And then, of course, I got to Ken Escher. Me and Ken, we battled about 3 nights a week. And then after we'd get through battling, I'd send my car home with Kenny, and he'd fix it up, and we'd go at it again the next week. So we battled pretty hard for years. Then I finally decided to go to all asphalt, went back to Larry, and he put me together a couple cars. And he told me, he said, "You're not figuring on winning this first year, are you?" I said, "Well, I thought I might." And he said, "Well," he said, "I think what you need to do is just, I'm gonna put your dirt car and fix it up a little bit. Then in the winter, we'll get you a good asphalt together." I said, "Okay." So he said, "When you get out there, when I pass you, you follow me." He said, "You learn what I'm doing on this asphalt." Well, it wouldn't be too long till he'd pass me. He'd be gone. I couldn't see too much what he was doing. So it went on down through the years, and then I got a hold of Gene Snyder and got the new cars. And Gene Snyder, one heck of a motor builder. They talked about him a while ago. He built all of my engines, and I never had one to break. And I had more power than most time. You always hear people say, "Well, I've got too much power." I mean, don't have enough power. I usually had too much power the way I drove it. But he's a good engine builder. And even Dick's Machine Shop, they talked about him a while ago. He built one engine for me way back on the dirt before I started. And then Bill Crooks, they talked about him. He was the flagman there, and he got to going with me. And Bill done real good with us. We went off down to Mississippi and Alabama and here and there. And then, of course, Larry Shaw got in on the deal just a little bit. He was a friend of mine back in those days. He helped us one year. And he got me going so fast that he built him 6,000 cars, told him since. Quite a builder on cars. And then Chico, Ron Chico, I guess y'all know him, Ron England. I don't know if you know, we know him, but Chico. He was he could do anything with metal. Built the tunnels and whatever I needed to build, tell him about it, he could build it. And then we get out to my family. I thought, well, my family, we had a motorhome we traveled in most of the time back then. And I thought, well, I'm kind of causing them a hardship. Well, come to find out that they're liking it better than I was. They got to go to all the fairs on the weekends and eat all the corn dogs and all the lemonade and meet all the people. So when we quit, they kind of got mad at me. But I really appreciate this association honored me. And thank you very much, all of you.
Introduction to be a Ozark Racing Hall of Famer, Terry Brum.
1974 of April, there was a guy used to hang around Larry's shop, and we were short-handed, and I asked him if he would be interested in having a job here, and he said he would. So I asked Larry that afternoon when he showed up if he would hire him for me. He was short-handed, and how long did you work there? 5 years, and he was an unsung hero of Larry's. He never got the credit he deserved. Lonnie, come on.
Well, I remember one thing about what Terry said. I was unemployed at the time, so any job offer would have been a good one. But I did start work at Larry's. But prior to that, I got involved with racing a long time before that. My brother, James Snodgrass, had a race car in here, run out the fairgrounds, and George Stark drove the car. The only thing I remember about that car, it'd sit out in front of the house a few times. I'd get to play in it, but it had a rubber chicken on the trunk lid, and that was my first experience with a race car. Later on, I got tied in with Bill Peck. I was 17 years old, and that was quite an experience for a 17-year-old to go to the races with Bill Peck and Ray Fawcett from Seven Gables Truck Stop, Bob Ince, and a few of those guys. So it was quite an experience. But as I went into the service and got kind of free of all those guys, when I came back, I got hired at Larry's, and I worked there for almost 5 years, and it was quite an experience. And I've got to thank a lot of people. I mean, I knew nothing about building a race car, Now, Bill Peck, when Bill Peck built a race car, there was a 4-foot piece of railroad iron between the front frame rails. And his favorite saying was, when he hit the wall, he wanted to gain speed as he went through it. And he tried it several times, and it didn't ever put a dent in that railroad iron. But there was a lot of people that taught me, I mean, every name you've heard mentioned tonight, I've had an experience with. I mean, it don't matter. Gene Snyder, John over at Dick's Machine Shop, everybody that's been mentioned tonight, I could tell you stories. And that's what they told me. Just fill in the time, tell a few stories, and I've determined that I better just leave them stories untold. Terry has been a good friend. Terry has taught me a lot through the years. I never did learn how to TIG weld because Terry's a whole lot better, and all I do is just take it over and give it to him, and he'll weld it. I've gotten into, when I quit at Larry's, I went to City Utilities. Family came along. I need to thank my wife for putting up with me for 43 years this last November. And I think that she deserves a round of applause just for that. But I went to a civilian job for almost 28 years at the power plant at Lake Springfield. Well, when I retired, a friend of mine, known him forever, Gene McKean, conned me into going to Bonneville. And I've been going to Bonneville every year since. And we built a car, a 32 Ford 5-window, all-steel car, took it to Bonneville, raced it. We were going to make it at Flathead. We got into other things. We've been all over Mooresville, North Carolina, looking for things. That's the race car capital, NASCAR land, I call it. And I met, standing there one day in a carbon fiber shop, trying to figure out how to make some wheel spacers. Bob Aton walks up, and I had no idea that's where Bob was at. But so I've met so many people. You know, this whole journey through life is about people and acquaintances and relationships. And I know a lot of people in here. I have been through a lot of things. Chris Davis is a great friend. I try to help anybody I can, but I do have a lot of memories of people in this room, and I do think it's a great honor to be inducted into this association, and I think it's even a greater honor to go in with the group that's here with me tonight. But I hope everybody has a good time, and I thank you very much for having me.
Back to the Legends category, our 8th inductee of the evening is driver James Taylor. And again, if we could welcome to the stage Dale Roper to give his presentation.
Well, James raced back in the good old days at what they call the fairgrounds, when we raced on the short asphalt track. Different than most people, a lot of kids when they're growing up, they want to be race drivers. I don't think James really ever, now he raced under the name Jim, so all the old programs you see, it'll say Jim Taylor. But at Fairgrove, everybody's always called him James, so I'm gonna call him James, if that's all right. But anyway, a friend of his had built a race car, a 50 model Chevrolet coupe, just like he'd drive off the street. Took the 6-cylinder motor out of it, put a V8 in it, and they had a driver named Billy Joe Adams. He decided to move on to a different car. They needed a driver. James was around town, and James had been a basketball player at high school, a good athlete. So they asked James if he wanted to drive the car. And you didn't have no entry-level division back then. When you started racing with the best that there was. He got in this little coupe, and lo and behold, they had a lot of success with that car. They started running good, really running better than it had been running. And they started running here on Friday night. They go to Waynesville on Saturday night. He ran that car for the rest of that year. And then he got the chance to buy a real good 57 Chevy, which was the going thing then. He bought a real good 57 from Vern McCracken. I was helping him then. That was about 2 years before I started racing. But anyway, he ran that car, and then he built a 56, they built a 62, and they built a 63. Him and Don Blair built. They ran. There was one summer, about 1964, we were running 4 times a week. We was running Friday, Springfield, Saturday, Fort Wood, Sunday night at Rolla, and he got in a modified, the old style modified. My brother was running Joplin. Dean asked him, he said, there's a guy who got a car down there, needs a driver. So we would run Tuesday night in Joplin, 4 nights a week. That keeps you pretty busy. And then another thing that happened, a lot of guys got to racing at Fairgrove. I think that had a little something to do with it. We started running out of help because everybody started driving. There was too many guys driving, not enough guys to help. And then he got a chance to take over a farming operation after about 10 years of racing. And the farming operation that he operated then still operates. You can't race cars. You got too much to do. At that time, he was milking cows 7 days a week, twice a day. Big dairy operation. When they got out of that, now I think I heard him say the other day he's taking care of about 1,500 acres and about 600 or 700 head of cattle. So he don't really have time to race now anyway. James, congratulations. I'm glad to introduce you as a pioneer or legend. Thank you.
Well, I haven't got much to say. I'm not much of a speaker. But my racing days was with Don Cordelis and Bud McKee, Willie Crane, and all them guys. And very few times I got to beat Don Cordelis and Bud McKee. They had to have trouble for me to beat them. So we went on several years like that. Like I say, Dale said he got me in I bought John Sanders' 64 Chevrolet. And that was a really good car for me. But I done most of my racing up in, after Springfield. I was racing there and Rolla and Waynesville. But I done most of my winning up there in Rolla and Waynesville. I won the track championship up there several different times. Under Charlie Randolph was the promoter up there. And I done it for, I think, 8 years. And this farming come up, I got into farming, and I was having to drive back home from Raleigh at 1 o'clock in the morning and 2 o'clock, and having to get up at 4 o'clock and milk. And I said, something's got to give. I got to give up racing or the farming won. I can't do it. So I went to farming, and that's what I'm doing now. And I sure appreciated getting nominated into this Racers Hall of Fame. Dale Roper and Jimmy Van Sant especially got me in, I think. And I sure appreciate it. I've got my family here all tonight. I went home from the luncheon we had today, and my daughter lives in California. And I walked in the house, and there she come out of my bedroom. She had flew in from California just for this. So, I sure appreciate this, and I'm a farmer now. Me and my two sons operate a 500 mom cow and calf operation plus the background. So that's about where I spend most of my time, and I get to go to a few races, not too many. Thanks a lot.
So we got a couple inductees left tonight. We'll move back to the Pioneer category, and we'll welcome to the stage in a moment Mike Mittler. To give his introduction will be Dan Robinson of Lucas Oil Speedway. And Mike, I think I speak for everybody here in the room tonight. We're so glad you're able to be here with us. So we're really excited to hear your stories. Dan?
Well, thank you. It's quite an honor to be up here tonight. You know, I was a race fan since I was 13, and to be up here and surrounded by all these guys, Carl and Schrader and Mittler and Chris Davis, it's really an honor to be up here, so I'm kind of overwhelmed, really. But I actually met Mike in 2000. I was working at Lebanon I-44 Speedway. Well, actually, I met Carl first, but I didn't know that. He was running baby grands. I didn't know Carl Edwards was Carl Edwards, that he was going to be Carl Edwards, so he was just another kid in a baby grand at the time. But anyway, Bill Willard took me to Lebanon to Gateway, and we watched the truck race. Jamie McMurray was driving. That was my first interaction with Mike. And as I was working on my full-time job, I was a project engineer, and a couple years later, Mike had come through the plant. He was quoting some equipment work, and I still knew of Mike, but didn't know Mike. So I just kind of went in there, and we just reconnected, and he invited me to go with him to a truck race, and we just got to be friends, and I started doing that for a few years. And so that was really neat to be able to work with Mike and have him take me all across the country. And I'm going to read a quick thing, and then I'll finish the story on where Mike and I have ended up. But Mike Mittler, born with a wrench in his hand and gear oil in his veins, Mike was destined to be a pioneer in many ways. His real heroes and mentors were his parents, who taught him at an early age that if you think you can do something, you can indeed do it. Also, it doesn't matter what you are in life, be the best you can be. He got his MBA at the dinner table listening to the business lessons his dad brought home each day. He learned an honest day's pay for an honest day's work, and he still embodies that today. Mike was always curious about how things worked, and he would take anything apart to learn what was inside. Even a few times he got it back together to make it work again. He taught himself to weld by buying a $14.95 welder from the back of Popular Science magazine. A dedicated lifelong learner, he would read anything he could get his hands on, expand his knowledge of all things technical. And I know he still does that today. All the time he would send articles and blips and put stuff on my desk when I worked there. The first Mittler Brothers business provided grass cutting service to begin with, and expanded to include all odd jobs that people wanted done. It's passed down through all of his four brothers. The business provided the financing for his first race car, a 55 Chevy stock car, raced at Lake Hills Speedway near St. Louis. This is where he met Hall of Fame members Kenny Schrader, Rusty Wallace, and Larry Phillips, all of whom he credits with helping shape his racing future, which has included racing in the NASCAR Truck Series since the inception in '95. The Mittler Brothers team is the only team in the history of the NASCAR Truck Series that has run every year since its inception. So that's quite an accomplishment when you look at the teams around. This led to the creation of the current Mittler Brothers in 1980 that started with one product and now has expanded to a worldwide offering of machines and equipment used at all levels of racing. Mittler Brothers has approximately 50 employees and operates out of a modern 50,000 square foot plant in Wright City near St. Louis. Mike has helped many drivers along their path to stardom, including Rusty Walls, the late Kenny Irwin and Tony Roper, and other inductees tonight, Kenny Schrader and Carl Edwards. So to finish the story with Mike, we did a lot of work together after that first introduction. Not only did I go help him with his truck team for a couple of years, I mean, he took me to Homestead and California, Kentucky. We went all over the country. I volunteered, flew me into the races. It was a great time. I loved it. We learned a lot of stuff. I worked for Justin Allgaier and Chris Wimmer, different things. But towards like 2007, I decided that factory work wasn't for me anymore. And I kind of took a leap of faith, quit my job. I got another job. Didn't work out very well. Well, I called my old buddy Mike. I'm like, Mike, man, I got a family to feed. I got all this stuff. I said, is there anything I can do? So he says, hey, I got a need. He says, how about we do a deal? And we did kind of a contract labor thing. And this is in 2008 now. He just bought this huge building. Everybody knows what happened in 2008, the recession hits. So it was a struggle, and I think Mike would attest. But Mike was always a guy, he was always positive, kept his employees motivated. And I know he probably was awake at night, like, how am I going to make payroll and these things? But he let me stay there until I found something else. And as Lucas Oil and me worked together to try to put something together, it was Mike Mittler, and I'm working for him at the time, but he calls Lucas and says, you've got to hire this guy. So here I'm one of his guys. I could work for him, and he gets me the next job. So I honestly feel like I'm no different than when Jack Roush called Carl Edwards. I know Mike told Carl, same thing. You got to take it, Carl. You got to go. You got to go the next thing. Mike told me the same thing. So, I mean, he takes care of people, and 9 years later, I'm still proud to call him my friend. We talk a lot, and he's a Hall of Famer, man. He's helped so many people. Mike Mittler.
Well, thank you, Dan. And I've been known to be a pretty long-winded, so I think I'll just hold the first 2 hours of my comments and just get right to the important stuff. I know it's getting a little late and people are getting thirsty, so you'll all want to get to the place to get a little refreshment there. I am humbled and very grateful for this honor to be here tonight. Never would have thought in a million years that I would stand here in front of you and tell you that. I have done a few good things in my life, and I've done a few pretty bad things in my life. And one thing I don't want to screw up here tonight is I have a very direct connection to racing in the Ozark area. And that direct connection of racing in the Ozark area is my lovely wife, Beverly, who until a few minutes ago was sitting right over there, wherever she is now. There she is. And I'm proud to tell you that she grew up right down 13 Highway, and you're not from Springfield unless you say 13 Highway, because in St. Louis we call it Highway 13. She grew up right down 13 Highway at Division Street, and so she has supported me for all these crazy ideas over all the years, and I would not be standing here today. No doubt I would not be alive anymore if I didn't have her. So thank you, dear, for allowing me to chase my dream over all these years. I'm very grateful. So we had a little get together this afternoon because I brought a pretty good entourage with me also. I didn't recognize her to the very end, and everybody's kind of waving their arms and pointing and everything. I said, don't worry, I got it covered tonight. And I didn't make that up. I can show you when I wrote it a long time ago. So, and I did, as I said, many of my friends and almost all of my direct family is here tonight. Only my brother from Texas didn't make it. He's a lot smarter than I am. His wife had surgery a couple days ago, so he stayed home to take care of his wife. But all the rest of my immediate family is here, and a lot of my race crew is here with us tonight. Really great to have a lot of smiling faces here tonight to be with us. I have a number of other local friends here. A lot of the names mentioned tonight are friends. I met Larry Phillips many, many years ago. I remember coming there to the shop when Terry worked there, and so great memories of that. I got to thank Dale Roper, probably a big reason why I'm here tonight. Dan Robinson, probably a big reason why I'm here tonight. Terry, I'm sure. And I don't think tonight would be complete without a great memory and a great thought of both the late Dean and Tony Roper. Tony drove the very first race for us at Milwaukee in 1995, and the real agony defeat was losing Tony at Texas, and it was a real loss to all of us. I can say today, unfortunately, and when that happened, I screamed at the top of my lungs to racing people and others in the industry, we have to do something to fix this. We had a great roundtable at the PRI show that year talking about safety. Smokey Unick was there presented, many other brilliant people were there presented. And I don't know if it ever would have happened, but unfortunately a few months later we lost Dale Earnhardt, and finally NASCAR woke up and said, we got to do something. So I don't think Tony or Kenny Irwin or any of those other guys or Earnhardt died in vain, because there's many drivers today that have lived through horrific crashes, and it's because of guys like that paid the ultimate price. So I really give tribute to Tony, and as many people said, Dean died of a broken heart, because without Tony, he was really brokenhearted. I got two other really good friends here tonight. That without them being part of this and being part of involvement with me, I wouldn't be here tonight. My good friend and longtime racer Paul Lawson is here with me tonight, and my right-hand man that's been with me for many years, day and night. I can't get rid of him. I can't get him to go home. Kendall Downs is also here with his lovely wife. So thanks a million, guys, for all you've done to help me to be at this level here tonight. We have helped a few drivers along the way, and I'm like somebody else said, some of those stories are best left untold, but there are a few of them that I can also tell as we go forward here. Kenny Schrader still thinks I overcharged him for helping him put that interior in one of his first race cars. Yeah, $60. I think I did get over on you there. So, but I think a few of those other deals over the years maybe helped even that out a little bit. But we've had a lot of fun with that. And I failed to mention one of my other good friends here. Joe Rushing from here in Springfield. And a few years ago, Joe retired from Cox Hospital here in Springfield, and he made it his life's ambition to never wear long pants again. So that song that says I go where the weather suits my clothes, Joe does that. But I was really shocked to see him have long pants on last night when we got to Springfield. So thanks for coming from your Florida home to come back to your Springfield home. My notes were a little scribbled up here. Sorry about that. So the next guy to be introduced here is our good friend and really famous guy, Carl Edwards. And I do have a few stories on Carl, but they're all good ones, and don't worry, because I've met his lovely wife and his lovely mother sitting right here in the front row, and Carl is an upstanding guy. And one of the things, people said to me, what made Carl great? And I think the word focus comes to mind. And when we traveled to those first races there way back in 2002, we'd all stop along the road and have a pit stop, get some fuel, and run in to get something to eat. Well, I was about the king of the junk food junkie, and I'd get a Coke, a hot dog, and a Twinkie, and I'm thinking I'm living large. And Carl'd go in, and he'd get the biggest bottle of water they got and a couple of granola bars. I said, is that all you're getting? He said, yeah, man, that's all I need. And Carl had a focus then, what it was going to take to become a champion. And he knew if he put crap in his body, he wouldn't be a champion. Well, I'm learning that late in life, and I'm trying to learn a few of those lessons. So lo and behold, things moved along for Carl, and things were good. And I was pleased and fortunate to get invited to his wedding when he married his lovely wife, Kate. And so it was quite an affair. It was a beautiful wedding, a fantastic time. And so, we get to the reception, and they have all the traditional things like we would, and they have to cut the cake and the toast and everything. I thought, wow, Carl is finally going to go over the edge, and he's going to have some champagne at his wedding. I thought, that's a really well-deserved thing to do, And I'm thinking, here's this guy finally going to enjoy himself a little bit. So, later in the night, we got a little one-on-one time, and I said, hey, that was cool. Was that your first drink alcohol? And he said, oh no, he said, that wasn't alcohol. He said, that was sparkling grape juice. So here's a guy on the night of his wedding, the highlight of his wife, the highlight of his life to that part. And I think he'll tell you it's still the highlight of his life, marrying his beautiful wife. And he has sparkling grape juice at his wedding. So there's a guy that is really, really focused on it. So then we fast forward a number of years to just a few short weeks ago, and Carl invited us to come to another event somewhat similar to this in St. Louis. And quite honestly, I had heard of it, but wasn't really aware of what it was all about. It's called the Stan Musial Sportsmanship Awards. And I don't probably have to explain to too many here. You know, Stan Musial was a great baseball player in St. Louis and was just a fan favorite of everybody. And so we get invited to this, and I didn't really know what it would be. Well, let me tell you, it was quite an affair there that night. And it was a sit-down dinner, and I was privileged to sit with Carl and his family, and my wife was there with us. And we got to catch up a little bit and visit for a few minutes. And then they, you know, after the dinner was over, we went in for the awards. It was just about like this. A little more famous. They had some people from all over the country there. And Carl was the second to last to go, just like I am right now. And they called him up and they gave him this award. They interviewed him. The local sportscaster there in St. Louis, Mike Bush, did an interview and interviewed him and everything. And then they gave the last award to Jackie Joyner-Kersee, a great Olympian. They gave her the Lifetime Stan Musial Award. And so it's all over, and they have all the pictures on the stage and everything, and I'm sure we're probably going to do a little bit of that here in a little bit. And we're just kind of waiting there and talking to the family, and where are you going? We going home tonight? What are we going to do? And all that. We're just kind of waiting, and we wanted to get some pictures with Carl, and so he waves us up on the stage. Come on up. You know, I want you to get some pictures. We walked up on the stage, and here Carl reaches out and hands me this award. He hadn't had it in his hands 15 minutes. He autographs the back of it to Mike Mittler. I won't say everything that he said because it's very personal, but he autographed it and signed it over to me in 15 minutes. So when we talk about what a great guy he is, why would how fortunate was I to give him that opportunity. So thanks a million, man. And then how cool was that for both of us to be on the stage here tonight? Pretty good. I get to tell that story about you and tell you thanks in public. It shows the sportsmanship that Carl had. So I think the other thing that I'm very fortunate about is, and Dan mentioned a little bit, we started Mittler Brothers Machine in 1980. My brother and I is here with his wife Connie tonight. He's not only my youngest brother, it's an ongoing debate which of us is the best look, and I'll let you all solve that, you know, when you see Paul. But not only is he my youngest brother, but he's my partner in business for almost 38 years now. And we're like brothers. We do have a few knockdown drag-outs every now and then, but ultimately we've worked together for all these years, and I appreciate the support and everything that he's let me do over all these years, because without question, I've been able to go and do and allow me to come to things like this. And I always say, when I go back to Mittler Brothers, I say, when my name is called in public like this, it is only because of each and every one of you. I'm a total believer that the team, the acronym, Together Everyone Achieves More, is what makes so many things possible in life. And so I always like to tell all my employees, they all rode along with me on my shoulders here tonight and many other opportunities when this has happened. So I'm grateful to all of my employees that have supported me over all the years. I'm proud of them. We've got about 50 people right now. They make the greatest made-in-America products that there are. And I'm very, very proud of the craftsmanship that they have and the work that they put into all our products. And I'm proud to say we ship our products all around the world. Proud to say made in USA. Don't ever let anybody tell you that we don't make things in America. I'm sitting next to another great guy. All guys that understand about made in America, a very important part of what we do in this world today. So thank you very much. I'm humbled and very honored to be here tonight. Thank you.
That's it. Thanks for coming. We have one speaker left to go tonight. Great stories by everybody tonight. I'm serious. This is honest. This is as good as it gets in the sport of racing. Baby Grand standout and NASCAR legend Carl Edwards will be the final one to speak. Jim Sterling will give his introduction.
Thank you. I wouldn't be here without him.
It's nice to be with you in Springfield tonight. My congratulations to all the inductees, all of you, and all those of you that are inductees from earlier years. My dad took me to my first stock car race at Humansville 65 years ago. Kenny, you were racing? No, Kenny wasn't there, but Tom Bolivar Brown was there, and that was my first experience of seeing a stock car race. He was from Bolivar, and that's where I lived. Later, I would go to the fairgrounds, and I'd watch people like Don and Bud and Larry and Lester and Willie Crane, a whole bunch of the guys. Dale, Dean, Fred, lots of them. I can't remember all the names, but man, they were a fabulous bunch of guys. They'd all go at it out there at the fairgrounds. And I always thought the wildest thing about the fairgrounds was the parking lot when you left, because everybody that left, particularly us teenage boys, all thought we were race car drivers when we left the track. Now, maybe some of you experienced that, but it was a great thing driving out of there. I think we did a little bumping sometimes. When I returned to Bolivar in 1968, Ronnie Hughes had a good thing going at the Bolivar Speedway. I started writing stories, taking pictures, and covering races. So every Saturday night, that was what I did. I went to the Bolivar Speedway to cover stock car races. Saw David Berlin, Jerry Shaw, Tom Brown was racing there, and all the others that went head-to-head with the best racers from throughout the Ozarks. So when I met my lovely wife, Nancy, in Columbia, after I moved to Columbia, about 2000, after 2000, she said she had a son who was a race car driver. So I thought I'd just fit right in with that. I knew all about racing. She took me to a race at Moberly, about 30 miles north of Columbia. And not only were the cars different up there, because I was used to a bunch of late model Chevrolets down here, is what we all had back when I was watching racing back in the 60s and 70s. But I just about choked on the dust up there on turn 4. And I'll tell you, the dirt in North Missouri is different than the dirt in South Missouri. And I really like this a lot better down here. I expect you do too. I quickly figured out this kid that we were watching was something special. He was a heck of a good dirt track driver. He'd been racing since he was 14. When he first stepped into his father's car one night over in Western Illinois and won a race. I don't know quite what he had to do when he got to the finish line. Maybe he'll tell you about that, but he wasn't supposed to be in there. Certainly didn't have a driver's license by that time. By the time I met him, he was a track championship all over Missouri, burning up the tracks. He'd run in Lebanon, Odessa, California, Holt Summit, a place I'd never even heard of. He was driving baby grands for Dwight Laxton from West Plains, Silver Crown cars, ran those from coast to coast. He got good enough that Mike Mittler, up towards St. Louis, Mike put him in a 63 truck to run in the NASCAR Truck Series. And from there, Carl Edwards just took off and became a household name for race fans everywhere. Jack Roush hired him to drive the 99 truck, and he won 8 times in that series, and moved up to the Busch Series, which he was a NASCAR champion in 2007. Overall, I think he won 38 races in that series. Didn't take long for him to get a seat in a Roush Ford in the Cup Series, and people knew he was a real deal from the very beginning. Really was. At Roush and later with Joe Gibbs Racing, he would appear in 445 races at the top level, win 28 races in the Cup Series, and barely lose out on 3 championships. Overall, he won 74 races in the 3 NASCAR series over 15 years. He quickly became one of the top drivers and was always in the hunt for the top prize. He finished in the Cup Series top 5 6 times, including second twice and third once. Under the rules in place when he started, he would have led the series in points twice. As we all know, he was running away in that final race at Homestead when the Phantom yellow came out with 10 laps to go. That's not him saying that, that's my editorial on it. Carl Edwards is a Missouri guy. Born and still living in Columbia, tried North Carolina, but he really likes Missouri better, so we're glad he's back home. I know his mother's happy to have him home and do that. Carl's had a Hall of Fame career and has always set a high standard at a competitive level. He ran head-to-head with Mark and Jimmy and Jeff and Dale Jr. and Tony and Kyle and Jamie and Kevin and Brad, all the guys, all the big names in NASCAR. There was no bigger name through that period of time that he raced than Carl Edwards. I used to love to pick up USA Today just to see what they were saying about him and see things. And I've seen the commercials, I've seen him in movies now, I've seen him on things. Was it Logan Lucky? That's what he's a cop in the line. Catch himself, maybe. I don't know what he could do. More than that, he's been a great spokesperson and a representative for the racing community. Tonight he's being inducted in the Ozark Racers Hall of Fame, and we're proud to welcome him as one of our own. So, Carl Edwards, come up here and tell him some stories. Thank you.
So, this is a huge honor for me, and I think I could speak for everybody up here. This is way more nerve-wracking than any race you drive, just to get up here and think about what you're going to say. So, I just thought for me, it would be fun to talk a little bit about kind of what my career and really thank a bunch of people. First, my dad. My dad and Kenny are cousins, so you know, I don't know exactly how it all started. Dad always says he's faster than you, but so you must have raced together at some point. But Dad basically raced everything. You know, as a kid growing up, Dad was my hero. He could do anything. He won about every race we went to, and he built these 4-cylinder cars. He'd just build the whole car. He'd set the tubing out on the floor and build the car, and go build the engine and go racing. And I'd sneak in and under a blanket in the back and air up his tires and all that. And then he bought a car when I was 14 or something like that, 14 or 15, and we worked on that. And when it was done, I still wasn't 16, as Jim pointed out. And it's like, man, I don't know how I'm going to race. And he said, well, I made you a fake driver's license. But I had no clue you were that cool, Dad. I mean, it was unbelievable. And so he took the trailer that he was towing his car on, and he just cut the front of it off and stuck a spacer in there about 6 feet long, and we hauled 2 cars to the racetrack. And so we did that all over and had a lot of fun. And so yeah, I would show up at German Import Service and work on the cars in the parking lot on Saturday morning. Then we go to the races, and every once in a while, this guy Kenny Schrader would come rolling through town, and I thought, this guy's like a superhero. I mean, he flies in on an airplane or rides in on a motorcycle or drives a hauler up to the shop, and I thought it's actually possible to drive race cars for a living. I mean, that's because my teachers tell me I have to go to school and I have to go to college, but there's this guy that shows up and it seems like he's doing okay, and so it spurred this idea in my head that you could drive race cars for a living. And everybody told me I was crazy, and just like they probably told all of us we're crazy for what we like, but it kind of started going along, and we won some races and in the 4-cylinder cars, and I thought, well, this is simple. I'll go down to Kenny's for the summer. He said I could come hang out. I don't know if he told the guy, Huffy, you made me his roommate, but I don't think he told Huffy. I just showed up and had to explain why I was living with him for the summer. But that summer I learned a lot of stuff, not much about racing. I learned a lot about strip clubs and beer. I didn't know they would do all that stuff for $1. Yeah, when you're like 16 or 17, that was crazy. So anyway, yeah, when I wasn't drinking the champagne, it was because I'd experienced all that at a very young age. So, but Kenny brought me in his office one day. I don't know if you remember that, but you just said, hey, come in here. And I'd been waiting to talk to him because I had this whole plan. Now he's going to hire me to drive his ARCA car, and it was all going to work out. And it's going to be like, I had seen Days of Thunder. I was like, this is it. This is how it's going to go. And he said, what the hell are you doing here? And I said, well, I want to be a race car driver. He said, well, what about like being a dentist or something like that? Remember that? He said dentist. I was like, dentist? Why the heck do I want to be a dentist? he said, man, this is hard. You know, and there's a lot of really good racers out there. He said, you don't need to be here. You need to be back in Missouri racing. I was like, okay. And he gave me a couple $100. He said, thanks for working, and you should drive a modified. So I thought, okay, that's what we're gonna do. And so then came my mom, and my mom is here, and so I had to go home and explain to the family, mom and dad, that we need to go racing, and this is how it's got to be. And Kenny Schrader says I got to get a modified. So we made the mistake buying one from your cousin. Remember him? Man, it was terrible. Don't ever buy a race car from family. And everything we took apart, all the way down to the ring gear, was just missing teeth, and it was just terrible. So I thought that I was a terrible driver. I wasn't. You know, I mean, I thought I was really, really bad. I finished like 15th out of 13, like 3 nights in a row. And then we bought that car from Howard Hall, and we went up to Moberly, and we started winning. And same thing, you know, your confidence was up, and I thought, well, this is easy. I'm just going to go up here to Mike Mittler's shop. I'm going to have this meeting with him, and he's going to put me in his truck. And so I was so lazy, I called first, and he after a few calls, he wouldn't take my calls anymore. I think I said that in the program. But truly, he's like, you know, I don't have time for this. I'm working. We build things here. That's what we do. And if, you know, you want to come sleep the floor, go ahead. I said, perfect. So then swept the floor and hung out and learned from Mike, a lot from Mike. And he said, there's no way in hell you're driving my truck, basically. And I thought, well, man, I got to come up with something. And so I worked there for a while. And Mike, you know, somebody said something about an honest day's work with Mike. It's way different than an honest day's work. I don't know when you get up, but I showed up at noon, and we didn't stop working until like 2 in the morning. And you just make fun of people when they leave in the middle of the night. Like, well, okay, the rest of us will finish. You go ahead and sleep, whatever the hell that is. I thought, man, this guy's unbelievable. And you do that every day. And so the long story short, Mike didn't. They wanted to go. You know, they didn't have a big budget, and so I thought, man, I could come up with some way to get in this truck. This will all work out. And Moberly had paved the racetrack, and like every racetrack, they're trying to get people to show up. I thought, all right, well, Mike, I'll tell you what, I'll rent the racetrack, pay all the expenses, and Tony was driving the truck, and I said, you'll just let me drive it for like 30 minutes. Just let me try driving. And you're like, oh, fine. He said, Carl, I have no clue how you're going to rent the racetrack. That's pretty crazy, but yeah, we'll do it. And I thought, perfect. I didn't have a lot of money at all, and so I went to the racetrack and I said, hey, if I could get a bunch of media to show up here and cover this new paving job and how great it is, and you know, get people to come to the racetrack, would you let me have the racetrack to use for the day? And they said, sure. And then I went to the local media and I said, hey, this NASCAR team thinks I'm going to be a big deal, so they're going to let me test up this racetrack. And they said, sure, we'll come cover that. And it all just worked out awesome. And I went to bed the night before that, and the hauler's parked in front of my house because I think I got a truck driver. But anyway, it's crazy. But the reason I bring that story up was because I was looking through those pictures the other day, and that day was a culmination of my father and what he did for me, Kenny Schrader, Mike Mittler, and someone really special. In all those pictures, there's Tony Roper. I'm wearing his helmet. He's in the window telling me, helping me. And now, looking back on that was insane. For that guy to know that here's this punk kid trying to take his job, and he was the nicest person on earth. And I didn't realize how rare that is until later. So anyway, I think a lot of the Roper family, and that was really cool. I drove the baby grand car for Dwight and Wanda Laxton. We had a lot of fun with that. That was really cool. Is Wanda here? Did Wanda come? Well, we lost Dwight recently. He's a hell of a guy for the people that know him. We won a ton of races. We had a really good time, and those times were really special to me. Wayne and Rosemary Johnson, thank you for coming. I came to this event 14 years ago. I think that was the one that you were inducted, Wayne. Is that correct? And I listened to those stories, and I thought, that is a real man. And we needed someone to help me with the motorhome stuff and a bunch of things on the road, and you guys were driving every race. And so I'm fortunate enough to have worked with Wayne and Rosemary and call them family for a number of years now. So thank you for everything. And Rosemary actually brought the chocolate cupcakes that I basically survived on for 10 years. So thank you for bringing those tonight. I've been missing them. As Mike said, I'm really into fitness and all that. And Wayne, the only problem I ever had with Rosemary was not really a problem. I wanted it to be a problem, but I just couldn't resist. And when I found out that she'd been lying to me that those muffins were healthy, because I'd eat like 35 of them a day. And she told me, oh, they're healthy, they're healthy, they're healthy. And I thought, I don't really want to know. And finally, I dug through the trash and found the mix, and that's not a healthy mix. And I asked her, I thought, not everybody is like Wayne, 80 years old and can just whip ass. It's not like, some of us have to work at it. And so anyway, thank you. And I'd say the most important person for me to get to do all this fun stuff that I got to do. And to me, this whole racing thing is just an adventure. Truly, Kenny Schrader, when he would roll through town, I thought that's like being an astronaut. You get to go out and do all these neat things and meet all these people. And the most important person was my mom. And you still are. You're unbelievable. My mom can literally, she can do anything. And it's interesting. You're the one that you always told me you can do anything you want. And I always thought, that sounds good, but it really is true. But you have to have somebody like you helping. So I appreciate that, Mom. And, all right, so thanks for letting me talk for so long. That's nice. One other thing, my dad used to pull me around with a sled too behind the car. Do you remember that, Mom? Like, you were in the car too. Yeah, you were in the car, and I had this really full on PTSD of you and Dad driving away while I'm wedged under a parked car, and you didn't even stop. You just take off. So I kind of had that dad like girls, and one other thing I will say that through all this, I've never had an agent or anything. I always, worked on my own contracts and things. And the one that was brought up earlier, when Jack Roush called me, it was when we were preparing to go to Daytona in 2003. And I was behind under the wheel well, under the fender of Mike's truck, painting the stuff with Dennis, and I got this call and they said, hey, Kyle Busch just left for Hendrick and we need somebody to drive this 99 truck. And I was like, after I messed myself, I thought, man, I gotta go talk to Mike. And I asked Dennis, I said, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe what phone call I just got. I said, man, I gotta go talk to Mike. He's like, hey, good luck. And, because yes, everybody loves you at Mittler Brothers, but you're an intimidating guy, and you can be, yes sir. And so, man, I walked up that hill, and I thought, oh my gosh, what am I gonna say? How's this gonna go? And I just walked in your office and I said, hey, just got this phone call. It was crazy. They said Kyle Busch left and Jack Roush wants me to drive that 99 truck. And you jumped out of your chair and I thought, oh, he's gonna hit me. And you stuck your hand out and you just said, man, that is the greatest thing ever. And you were genuinely happy for me. I told that story at the Music Awards, but it blew my mind that you could be genuinely happy when it was at your detriment. So I think that's the type of person Mike Mittler is. And he deserves a round of applause for that. And so one other thing real quick before I'm done, I didn't have an attorney or anything, so I called Kenny Schrader because he's the only guy I assume had any, experience with contracts. And Jack Roush had 82-page contracts, 82 pages. And I read the entire thing with my dad. He was in law school at the time. And we came up with a list of questions, and it was like 13 or 15 questions. And Schrader's like, yeah, what do you got? And I said, okay, I got this contract. He's like, oh, you got a contract? I said, yeah. I said, okay, let me go through this. And I started on the first question, and he said, oh, I think I got the answer. So I think I can solve all this. I said, okay, and I'm like ready to write notes. He said, take each contract you have to drive race cars where they're gonna pay you money. He said, just lay them on the table and then just pick the best one and sign it. I was like, that's pretty simple. It was over. And so that was super business advice. So thank you. And you didn't even charge me anything for it, so thank you. So anyway, I'm not racing now. I'm farming, but not real farming like you. I don't know how you take care of 500 head of cattle. But I will say this, everybody wonders why I'm not racing. To me, racing, like I said, is an adventure. It's a passion. It's something I want to wake up every day and just give 100% and focus, like Mike talked about. And I had a ton of fun doing it. And I still may do more somewhere down the road, but right now, I am so grateful for the time I get with my family, and so grateful for the things I get to do. And I'm really enjoying it, and I appreciate the opportunity to race. I appreciate the opportunity that Joe Gibbs gave me to take the time that I want to take. And I truly appreciate all of you and everything you guys have done for me and all the racers in this area, and it's an honor to be here tonight. So thank you guys, follow your heart, and do whatever you want.
Stand out here with you guys. All your inductees, stand out here with you. Just don't trip on the wire.
I'm sorry, I got to talk tonight.
We are over early, ahead of schedule. We will be announcing the silent auction winners, so don't leave if you're the winning bid. We thank you for being here tonight. There's plenty of time now for you to mill around and see the rest of the pictures of cars. We thank you for being here. It's been a great night.